I don't know that this is working right now. So we're going to put a pause on it. My internet is not. Is the stream coming through? I'm having internet issues. So that's a question. Nomadic Faustianism. Yeah, we'll talk about nomadic Faustianism. But I need to know that this is actually working. Okay. So if this is working, the first part of the title, ethnos versus nationalism, we've been talking about this a lot, so I don't know that I want to harp on it for too long. But essentially, it's this confusion about what is nationalism. I'm going to give a couple of statements. Racism is nationalism. The being in favor of homogeneity is nationalism. What's another statement we could give? We could say wanting to fight for your people is nationalism. Ethnocentrism is nationalism. All of these are certainly connected to nationalism. I won't deny that there's a connection there. But none of these are sufficient definitions of nationalism. Nationalism is an ideology. It's not a feeling. It's not a cornucopia. It's not a collection of emotions. It's not your thumos. It's not the primordial spirit of God. Nationalism is an ideology. Nationalism has a sell-by date and an expiration date. And nationalism was basically invented in 1848 as an ideology alongside many ideologies. That revolutionary period in Europe saw the invention of so many different, Marxism and communism, and then out of that you get Marxist-Leninism, you get Trotskyism further down the line. But that's the birthplace of a lot of this ideologization of the European polis, of politics in Europe. The reason for that is because previously Europe had been ruled by monarchs. That's the traditional governance of Europe for thousands and thousands of years. Basically kings, all the way down to little tribal chieftains. These are warrior elites who ruled over Europe. Now, gradually, with the invention of capitalism by Henry VIII, the confiscation of the church properties, which spread out through Europe, you get the rise of the merchant class, which contests the power of the warrior class. And the monarchy, through making concessions to the merchants, through allying with the merchants, people like Rudolph II in Germany, they're attacking the priest class, they're attacking the Catholic Church. It all goes back to the investiture contest that the Catholic Church actually attacked the monarchs, and so in revenge they ally with the merchant class to attack the priests. But ultimately the merchants aren't satisfied to be the junior partner to the warriors, and they decide they want power for themselves. So they begin to ideologize. And this doesn't just happen with the richest men in Europe, but it happens with the middle class. Because your class affiliation, unlike a Marxist analysis, where you're either upper class or lower class, in my analysis, your class doesn't determine whether you're successful or powerful. Your class is a psychological type. Are you a warrior type? You can be a lowly warrior or you can be a king. You can be a good warrior or a bad warrior, but nonetheless you have the warrior mentality. You can have a priestly mentality. You can be the high priest or a low priest, but nonetheless you are a priest. You can be a rich merchant or a poor merchant, but nonetheless you are a merchant. So the middle class has this mercantile ideology, meta ideology, really, it's a mentality. So the mercantile class, the middle class, creates all these ideologies like communism and Marxism and socialism and all these isms that are really just meant to attack the church, and they're meant to attack the warrior class. And to various degrees, and different types of them, in different directions. Fascism later emerges as an alliance between this ideologization. It takes something from socialism and then it tries to reinvigorate the warrior class, and it gets very complicated. But basically, nationalism is an ideology. That's what it is. It's not a feeling. It's not a tradition. It's not an identity. Nationalism is an ideology. And what does nationalism say? Nationalism doesn't Nationalism is not inherently racist, first of all. Nationalism, you could say you're fighting for your people. Okay, that's a component of it. And so there's these tangential aspects to it, but fundamentally the definition of the ideology is you believe that the people who rule should be the same people as the people who are ruled. And typically this has to do with some kind of identity, either a civic nationalism, so Americans should rule Americans, or it can be ethnic. Germans should rule Germans, Poles should rule Poles. That is what nationalism is. Now, you can quote unquote fight for your people outside of the bounds of nationalism. The Jews have been doing this pretty much until 1947, and a lot of them, like Soros, who are anti-Zionist, they don't believe that the state of Israel is a good strategy for the Jewish people. A lot of them are anti-nationalists, and yet they still can fight for their people. There are many other minorities: the Amish, the Kurds, the Mormons, religious minorities, the Freemasons, the Episcopalians. There are people who don't have a nation of their own. They don't really desire for a nation state. Maybe the Kurds are an exception, but you don't necessarily have to desire a nation state in order to fight for your people, for your group, whatever that might be as a minority. So, and you can also be, look at Mike Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg has said some pretty racist things, people are reporting now. But is he a nationalist? No. So these three things which are conflated so often, racism, fighting for your people, and so on, that these things are the definition of nationalism. No, nationalism specifically is the idea that a people must be ruled by those who are alike to them. So Americans ruling Americans, Chinese ruling Chinese. And so nationalism implicitly, when it started in 1848, if you go to the Frankfurt Congress, which they were discussing how should the German nation state be formed. And there were arguments. Some Germans were saying, let's do what's best for the Germans. Let's expand. Let's take over Poland. Let's have a continental empire. But the ideological nationalists were saying, no, nationalism is for all peoples. Nationalism is universally preferable behavior. Nationalism means no non-aggression principle between nations. So nationalism really has its roots in classical liberalism, which is invented by the merchant class. And it's the idea of sovereignty of nations. It's the idea that we should all live and let live. It's basically taking libertarianism, and instead of making the non-aggression principle focus on the individual vis-a-vis the individual, it's looking at the level of nation states. So this is what nationalism is, and I have a lot of problems with nationalism. And one of my biggest problems with nationalists is they pretend that the nation state is the only way that an ethnicity can exist. They pretend that nation state is the only way an ethnicity can fight for itself. They pretend that the nation state, somehow, if you don't believe in the nation state, then you believe in diversity. This is the straw man all the time. If you don't believe in the nation state, then you want mass immigration from the third world. That's not the argument. It's clear that ethnicity, whether I like it or you like it, we could be in favor of ethnocentrism, we could be against ethnocentrism. But however we feel doesn't change the fact that people are going to identify around ethnicity, they're going to identify around religion, they're going to identify around other things perhaps, around consumer ideology, Star Wars fans, Daft Punk fans, I don't know. People are going to find an identity, and they're going to act collectively toward common interests. So Daft Punk fans are going to throw together concerts, and bronies are going to have conventions, and Christians are going to have churches, and ethnic lobbying groups are going to lobby the government to send billions of dollars to foreign countries. So that's just a fact of life, and there's really nothing you can do to change that. But to say that nationalism is de facto, nationalism is unstoppable, let's look at the trends. Is Russia becoming more nationalist or less nationalist? Well, again, the definition of nationalism is the same people who rule are the same people who are ruled. So Russians rule Russians. Well, what is a Russian? Well, traditionally, a Russian is a Christian. Do Christians rule over Russia? Perhaps. I would dispute that, but let's just concede that point. Let's say Christians rule Russia. Well, who do they rule? Do they rule Christians? Well, more and more, actually, Russians are not becoming increasingly Christian, even though church attendance is up. Church attendance is up because under the Soviet Union, it was taboo to attend church. Now it's publicly acceptable, so church attendance might be up. More churches are being built by the state, just as empty museums are being built in China. That's not evidence of a popular feeling toward Christianity. That's evidence of a public works project, essentially. Okay, what about in terms of the number of Christians? Well, demographically, the fastest growing group in Russia are not the Christians, it's the Muslims. Russia's becoming more diverse, and Russia's headed toward a future where if the leadership stays the same, I mean, no matter what happens in a diverse country, you can't have nationalism because nationalism requires homogeneity. It requires the leaders and the people being ruled are of the same identity. And that's not going to be possible if Russia is becoming more and more Muslim, which is just the fact. What about Brazil? Is Brazil nationalist? Well, I mean, you could say if there's a common Brazilian identity that transcends race and transcends ethnicity and transcends all those things, then yeah, I guess you could make an argument that Brazil is nationalist. Maybe in a civic nationalist sense, Brazil is nationalist. But again, on the subject of religion, what does it mean to be a Brazilian? Does it mean to be a Catholic? Catholicism is declining in Brazil on that dimension. So is Brazil a nationalist country? No. The same for the rest of South America. For America, is America becoming more nationalist? I think America is becoming more diverse. You can be upset about this. You can whine and complain about it. But the reason why these countries are becoming more diverse is because of deep incentives that have really powerful forces behind them. And the force of populism and the force of ideology, in my view, is an effect and not a cause. That is, powerful people create ideologies to legitimize their rule. That is, medieval Christian kings created the concept of the divine right of kings. They created an ideology in order to enforce their rule. When Christianity started to decline, instead it was the social contract. John Locke and the liberals and the social contract. We justify our rule through the social contract. We can see the ways in which that's a very flawed idea. Adam Katz calls these, super sovereignties, but I think they're just priestly myths. I think they're myths, they're narratives, they're stories that we tell, or that leaders tell the masses. They indoctrinate the masses into these myths. So why do we have competing myths in the world? Why are some people libertarians, some people socialists, some people fascists, some people nationalists? Why are there all these different ideologies out there? It's because there are different interests, different elite interests, different production of ideology, and it's also advantageous to play these ideologies off one another in order to achieve certain goals. For instance, the Cold War, you play communism off of capitalism and you fund the military-industrial complex. So ultimately, when we talk about ideologies, they don't spring out of the ether. They don't come out of the minds of the masses. The masses accept language. They receive language. They are taught language. And those who have the power to change language, not the people at the bottom of society, it's the people at the top, the people in media, people in the military, the people in the financial classes, the financial elite. These are the people who have the power to change the language. They're doing it through mass immigration. And so if you don't like that, if you're disturbed by that, then you need to gain power. And the way to gain power is not by whining and complaining about, oh, I wish we had nationalism, but it's actually to engage with one of the three classes, to make a judgment on where you best fit and how to gain power in one of the three classes. It's not by appealing to the people. Appealing to the people is an after effect of power. Once you have power, then you can convince people to believe in an ideology that supports your rule. But ultimately, it's not by convincing the people that you change things. It's by having power that you convince the people. Once the left won cultural supremacy in the United States, then they could have the 1960s. The 1960s would not have been possible without the consent of elites, and elites manufactured the 1960s. Bob Dylan was manufactured by elites. Elvis Presley was manufactured by elites. The Beatles were manufactured by elites. the music industry, the producers, the lack of censorship, the venues, the promotion in media, in television, in radio, with these technologies centrally controlled by the government, by corporations. Ultimately, it's elites that create popular movements. Popular movements are then given permission to exist by elites. So you either have to become rich, you have to either take control of the military, or you have to create a religious cult. Those are the three options. Convincing people is not an option. Once you have power, then you can use that power to indoctrinate people to be loyal to you. Like Bloomberg is doing. Bloomberg is a great example of this. Bloomberg has money, and he has been able to convert his money into media, and that media indoctrinates people into supporting Bloomberg. And he's got like 10% of the vote now in terms of the Democratic primaries, which is incredible considering he didn't involve himself in the debates. If people form their opinions, the masses of people form their opinions according to their own agency and their own decision making and their own judgment, then someone who didn't participate in the debates would have no chance because he hasn't really made any cogent arguments. We haven't seen him perform against other candidates, but none of that matters. What matters is 5-second Instagram ads for Bloomberg that he just pumps millions of dollars into and gets millions and millions of people to see, and they say, oh, okay, I guess I'll support Bloomberg. Now, not every single person is going to do that, but you've got 10%. And he also has connections within the media itself on a high level. So you've got people like Max Boot supporting Bloomberg or saying we should support one of the moderates, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Bloomberg. So there's a higher networking that goes on where Bloomberg is convincing elite actors to support him. And then there's sort of the lower levels with the Instagram ads. But fundamentally, Bloomberg is converting money into popular support. The idea that you can have there's no such thing as a grassroots campaign. There's no such thing as grassroots power. The only sense in which we can imagine the grassroots disagreeing with elites is if they've received an ideology from old elites and that ideology has codified and it has become, you could say, it has sort of calcified in the minds of the people to the point where it is resistant to changes in ideology. And so when Christ and the Christians converted Europe, that was a process that happened at an elite level. There's now a lot of evidence to show that the early Christians were not poor. They were of the warrior class, they were soldiers, and they were middle-class merchants. They were not poor people, they were not slaves, they were not beggars, they were not prostitutes. I'm sure some of them were there, but the majority of early Christian converts in the first couple centuries AD were soldiers, and they were middle-class people. And they converted to Christianity because there was this spiritual elite, this priestly elite, this ascetic elite who went around the entire Mediterranean sailing on ships, starting bishops and bishoprics and creating churches and going out and convincing the people using argumentation that was based off Platonism to a large degree and appealed, of course, to the Jews by going to the Torah. And they were using these highly sophisticated arguments. They were tapping into existing, you could say, an existing mental landscape or a mythic landscape. They were tapping into that, and they were exploiting existing, how should I say this, a precipice. When you imagine a boulder sitting atop a hill, it's filled with potential energy. All it needs is a push. And so my suggestion is that at that time, paganism was bankrupt in Europe, especially in Southern Europe, in the Roman Empire and Greece. It was bankrupt. No one really believed in it anymore in the way that they had hundreds of years prior. And so Christianity basically came along to an empty, rotten corpse and sort of pushed that corpse over. And all of the powerful currents in the Greco-Roman world, the mystery cults, Mithraism, monotheism, Platonism, Pythagoreanism, and as well as Judaism had spread throughout the Mediterranean as well. It tapped into all these things. It created a synthesis and a syncretism between them, and it appeared as the victor in this spiritual struggle. Not because it appealed to the masses in themselves, but because it tapped into already existing elite structures in the mindscape, in the spiritual landscape that had been created by elites, not by the common people. So you can tap into existing artifacts which exist in the mind, existing ideas, you can appeal to those, but they don't ultimately come from the people themselves, they come from elites. And maybe this is a rationalist versus empiricist distinction. I don't believe that the masses have innate instinctual ideas in an absolute sense. Now, of course, we do have instincts. We want to eat food, drink water, have sex, sleep, be protected, sheltered from the rain, be protected from predators and violence, have friends and family, socialize, hugs and kisses and intimacy. We want all these things, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So these things are instinctual to an extent, but in terms of religion, ideology, mythology, language, you are not born with language. You were not born with ideology. You were not born with religion. These things are created and fashioned by elites. In some sense, you can think of artwork. Artwork is not made by the people. Artwork is made by the artist, which then becomes popular, perhaps, amongst the people. Religion is not made by the people. It comes down on high from the priest, is given to the people, and then subsequent generations of priests can tap into those existing structures in relation to a change in environment and introduce a new religion once its time has come due to elite factors. But you have to view humanity as a body. That is, there are some people who are part of the head and some people who are part of the body. The head does the thinking. The head makes the decisions. The brain, on a conscious, subconscious level, unconscious level, whatever. The brain and the nervous system is making the decisions. Whether you are conscious of your decision to beat your heart and to have your lungs be breathing, whether you're conscious or not, that's the seat of decision making. And the body follows what the brain says. It's the same thing with my Spenglerian conception of societies as organisms. That is, there's people who are elite who make decisions. Now, there are different parts of the brain that govern different parts of the body. There are parts of the brain that deal with, in the brainstem, that deal with your beating heart and your lungs, your breathing lungs. So there's a specific part, we might call that the warrior part of the brain, that deals with basic precognitive tasks. And then there's a part that sort of deals with split-second decision-making. I see a beautiful woman, I'm sexually attracted to her. I see food, my mouth starts salivating. I smell something delicious, I start salivating. What else could we say? There are all these different things. I see something scary, my heart rate starts going up. I hear calming music, my heart rate goes down. So then there's this sort of, you could say we've moved from a purely animalistic action-reaction processing unit to a more mythic, symbolic processing unit, which is about the emotional system. And then finally, you have the consciousness and mental decision-making and 2 + 2 = 4 and logical, rational, whatever. So you have these different parts of the brains, which you could say are the warrior at the base. And then in the middle, you have the priest, the emotional function. And then finally, you have the merchant, the mercantile, the calculative aspect of the human mind. So these 3 parts govern different decision-making processes. 3 different parts of the brain, I'm overgeneralizing, but 3 different parts of the brain govern how you act in your body with your heart and your lungs. They govern how you act with your emotions, how you respond to stimulus in quick reaction time. And then they also govern your logical faculties and those conscious decision-making faculties. In the same way, we have 3 classes. I'm not just making the 3 classes up out of nowhere. And I'm not just taking this from perennialism, by the way, which is what I've been accused of purely taking it from perennialism. I'm taking it from a neurological model of the mind, which is a lot more accurate than the left-right brain. It's a tripartite brain. And human organisms, human societies are extremely complex, just like the human body, and they have to be governed by 3 separate parts: the warrior aspect, the priestly aspect, and the mercantile aspect. And this is where the decision-making happens, and the body follows. So in the same way, when elites make decisions, let's say elites say we want mass immigration. Then the people start saying mass immigration is good, and if you oppose mass immigration, you're a racist. A part of the elites might say, we need to decrease reproduction. So all of a sudden, if you have kids, you're hurting the environment, right? So these ideologies are created to justify decisions that the elite have made. Now, in the past, the elites were different. And so the decisions that they made were different. In the past, the elites wanted peasants to have a lot of kids because they wanted there to be lots of peasants to farm the land, because every new little peasant baby girl and baby boy in the next 5 years could help out on the farm and help, make more grain and help make things more efficient. And in the Industrial Revolution, even more so, we want more workers in the factories. And so there was a pro-natalism to elite decision making, and so ideologies and religions were pro-natal. But when that relationship started to change, when Thomas Malthus talked about the limits of human population, the elites started to get wind of this, and they said, I don't know if natalism is such a good idea. That was about 300 years ago. Increasingly, the elites are saying, I don't think we need all these people. I think we're headed toward a post-industrial society where most people are going to be obsolete and not helpful to the elite. You have to understand the elite basically are the farmers, and the masses of people are like the cattle. They're like the domesticated animal. And so they're looking at, are these people useful to me? Am I gaining value from the reproduction of these people? This is the elite perspective. You might not like it. You might say it's overly materialistic and mercantile and doesn't take into account the spiritual aspect of the family and of natalism, and you might dispute this or be upset with this. But the only way to change it's not by convincing people, but it's by gaining power. And you don't gain power through nationalism. Nationalism is an ideology, and ideologies are consequences of power. They're not causes of power. So ideologies form a nexus. They form an Umwelt, or an environment, which we can then interact with. But the ultimate origin of these things are from elites. So in a sense, this is a, I guess you could say, a sort of political absolutism in a way, as opposed to, we've talked about liberalism on this channel. We've talked about the function of liberalism. We've talked about the way that it brings people together. And we've discussed that. We've discussed the way in which liberalism is dominant, and we have to work within liberalism. But just because we have to work within liberalism and the laws that liberalism has set down for us doesn't mean that we necessarily have to, how do I say this? If you're playing a video game, and I don't know what the rule of the video game is. The rule of the video game is like your Pac-Man. And in Pac-Man, the rule is that the ghosts chase Pac-Man. And so you as Pac-Man can sit there and allow the ghosts to eat you, or you can run away from the ghosts and collect all the little dots. So the rule of the game is that liberalism is dominant. And so if you want to live in a fantasy world where liberalism isn't dominant and nationalism is rising, which is a contradiction because nationalism is a particular kind of liberalism. But if you want to have this fantasy and this totally maladjusted and distorted view of the world, you're going to have a bad map, and you're going to let the ghosts eat you. You're going to lose the game because you don't know what's going on. You don't know the environment. But once we understand the ghosts are going to chase us, once we understand the rules of the game, once we understand the positive and negative, then we can start navigating the map. And at that point, we can effectively play the game. So that's the kind of thing I'm advocating for. And we might circle back to this, but how long have we begun? 28 minutes. I did want to talk about Judaism as a Faustian religion, and say that essentially Faustianism is about going outside. Faustianism is about breaking bounds. Faustianism is about not staying where you are, but it's about going beyond. It's about infinity. It's about breaking through finitude and going into something beyond. Now, the Indo-Europeans were nomads, and they were Faustians in the sense that they wanted to expand beyond the reaches of their native climate and their native habitat, and they wanted to go to Ireland, they wanted to go to India, they wanted to go into China, and they wanted to go all over the Middle East. They wanted to travel everywhere they could. They just wanted to keep expanding. There was really very little limit to their expansion. In the east, they met the Gobi Desert. They met the mountains of Tibet. And, I guess they sort of ended up in Bangladesh there. That's the farthest they got at that time, their early expansion. And then on the western side, they made it all the way to Ireland, and then there was the Atlantic Ocean, which is, you can hop on a boat and sail across that, but these are the limits. Now, with respect to the southern limits, they encountered the people of the Middle East, who were very strong. culturally strong. And so, whereas the Indo-Europeans had been able to conquer all the peoples from Ireland to India, the Middle East was a different beast. And the peoples there were not so easily subjugated as the people of Ireland or the people of Bangladesh. So the Indo-Europeans didn't exactly take over the Middle East, but they did have an influence, and there were people like the Hittites there, Indo-Europeans in the Middle East. And they did influence, if we want to look at some research into who the pharaohs were, they certainly influenced certain populations. The Kohanim, the pharaohs. And then toward the south, they hit the bottom of the Arabian desert as a geographical limit, and then the desert of the Sahara. So the Indo-Europeans pretty much went everywhere that they possibly could. I guess you could say in the northeast, they hit the Siberia, the tundra of Siberia. They pretty much went everywhere that they possibly could. That was the Faustian spirit. And then thousands of years later, as the Indo-Europeans continued to develop, and when they became Christian, after that process of Christianization, they finally hopped on boats, and like Marco Polo, they went to China, and they went to the Americas with Columbus, and they spread out everywhere. So ultimately, the Faustian spirit never went away. It maybe went dormant for a little while, but ultimately with Christianization and then the Renaissance and the reintroduction of classical elements and Islam interacting with Europe, there was this unlocking of that Faustian spirit, which was dormant, and allowed the Indo-European peoples once again to go out into the world to expand and search for new limits and to go beyond those limits, which really culminated in space exploration back in the 1960s. Now, the space program has sort of failed in a way, and I think that shows that we might be entering another dormant period in terms of Faustian expansion, or we might be entering into a different kind of Faustian expansion, perhaps into genetic research. Here's where I want to pick up on Judaism. So Judaism, ultimately, its source comes from Egypt with the cult of Ra as a monolatric cult, and it comes from Zoroastrianism as a dualistic cult. And there was influence from the Hittites, and there was influence from the Phoenicians, and there was influence from the Babylonians, and therefore from the Sumerians. So the Jews didn't come out of a vacuum. The Jews are not aliens. They didn't come down from a spaceship with a completely unique, never before seen idea. The ideas that they had evolved over time, taken from different cultures. And that's not really a convincing, or it's not a convenient narrative for anti-Semites, because anti-Semites want to say that the Jewish people are uniquely evil, whereas Philo-Semites want to say they're uniquely good, chosen by God, everything like that. There's this narrative of uniqueness around the Jewish people that we have to recognize those things which are unique, but we do have to ultimately understand that they come from somewhere, that their ideas didn't develop in a vacuum. So when we look at all of these influences and we ask, what's the distinguishing feature of Judaism? What makes it different from the other religions of its time? Is that Judaism really wants to go beyond nature. Judaism is not sufficient. It's not satisfied with human animal nature. Judaism is not satisfied with our sexual drive. Judaism is not satisfied with our desire for food. Judaism is not satisfied with our desire for beauty and physical beauty. Judaism is not satisfied with these things, and I think Nietzsche does well to understand Judaism as an extremely priestly religion in comparison to other religions, which were, you could say, more mythic, more mystical, more symbolic, more artistic, more iconographic. Judaism tries to separate itself from all of that. And in doing so, Judaism really tries to transcend what it means to be human. I would say, and I've made this point before, but Judaism is a kind of transhumanism or post-humanism. That is, Judaism wants to connect to God. And Judaism defines God as infinite and eternal and beyond humanity, the great I am, the great being, the creator of the universe. And so Judaism is trying to escape humanity in the same way Faustian man is trying to escape Earth and go up in a spaceship into, the moon and Mars and the galaxy. Judaic man is trying to escape the limits of animal human instinct and animal human nature. And that's why Judaism has all these commandments that say you cannot eat on the Sabbath. Why? Because in fasting, you are denying your animal nature to eat. You cannot commit adultery. Why? Because in refraining from sexuality, you're going against your animal nature to procreate. You cannot draw graven images. You can't worship graven images. Why? Because humans, I think, almost on an instinctual level, are really impressed by and worshipful toward art. Even atheists today, they love their anime. Atheists love sometimes opera, or you get atheists who love, cartoons like Rick and Morty. So people are worshipful of art. And so in each case, Judaism identifies those things which are basic to the human being: the love of art, the love of sex, the love of food, and it places limitations on those things. Now, Judaism doesn't go so far as to be suicidal. Judaism doesn't go full ascetic. Judaism doesn't say, we should just stop having kids entirely, we should kill ourselves. Judaism doesn't say that. Judaism says we have to be very strict about putting these limits on ourselves in a ritualistic way, week by week, and to do things in a very particular way, and to keep kosher. So we have to separate ourselves from our animal nature to get ourselves closer to God. And this, to me, is about breaking free of the limitation of animal nature of humanity. And so, to me, Judaism is a kind of a psychic Faustianism, versus the Indo-Europeans. They weren't necessarily psychic Faustians, they were geographical Faustians. And this is sort of an expression of the fact that the Indo-Europeans were primarily a warrior-led people, and so their Faustianism expressed itself as conquering new lands and exploring new lands and going to new places and enslaving people and all the things the Indo-Europeans did, conquering people. Whereas the Jews, at some point in their history, they shifted from being a warrior-led people to being a priestly-led people, and so their Faustianism was no longer about geographical expansion, it was about expansion of the mind. It was about literacy. That's another stark thing about Judaism, is that there's the influence of literacy, the importance of literacy. And literacy, as I've said before, is abstraction. Literacy is dislocation. Literacy is you're taking ideas that are in your mind as a sort of magical, mystical, mythic mix-up of narratives and stories and metaphors, and you're taking that and you're putting it into words so that it can be seen and it can be dissected. And it can be viewed rationally, and it can be viewed logically. Logos, the word. So you're taking something which is poetic and whimsical and a song, a melody. You're taking that and you're sort of desacralizing it, and you're putting it into the word so that it can be examined and critiqued. In Talmudic Judaism, this is called pilpul. And Talmudic Judaism itself represents a further shift away from Hebraic Judaism, or the Judaism of King David, when the Jews still had a territory. They weren't nationalists, because a lot of other people lived there too. They were imperialists, but they had a warrior class that was functional up to the time of the Maccabees and the Roman Jewish Wars. After that period, the warrior class in Judaism was already sort of shrunken and small and less powerful in relation to the priest class than other civilizations. But now it really became small. Now it became insignificant. Now it was sort of written out of the Jewish community. And that was no longer an option. And so the circumstances that led to Talmudic Judaism, which was the destruction of the Jewish warrior class, are actually occurring worldwide today. So you could say the whole world is becoming Jewish because the importance of the warrior class is decreasing as technology replaces the function of the military with drones and cyber tech and cyber warfare and genetically engineered viruses and these sorts of things. We're moving away from the warrior class having the military function. We're moving toward the priest class as kind of engineers and technicians who actually create military power. So this is the thesis on Judaism, which, maybe some Jews would be interested in this. I certainly know the anti-Semites would not like any kind of comparison between the Faustian spirit in terms of the Indo-Europeans and the Jews. But that's my perspective. I did have a couple of essays that maybe we want to get through. Let's see, one on the economy, one on Huxley, one on the deep enlightenment, and I think we'll start with the shortest one. In 40,000 BC, Homo sapiens invaded Europe and interbred with Neanderthals. In 25,000 BC, humans began to create cave paintings and fashion Hottentot figurines. In 10,000 BC, humans invented agriculture and founded the first cities in ancient places. I should just say the first ancient cities. I don't want to be redundant. The first ancient cities like Jericho, Ur, and in the Indus River Valley, which I think is Göbekli Tepe. Well, Göbekli Tepe is in Anatolia. Göbekli Tepe. I don't know how to spell Göbekli Tepe. Let's do a Google search. It's in modern day Turkey. It's like Göbekli Tepe. 2 words, actually. It's not 1 word. No, I meant Göbekli Tepe. It's that Turkish umlaut. Göbekli Tepe and the Indus River Valley. These developments represent a separation from the pre-conscious animal structure of the mind, shifting into a magical consciousness structure. This dissonance exists vividly today as schizophrenia. We hallucinate, we see and hear voices which are not really there. We hear the gods within us and we see them around us, the angels and demons. The immediacy of the Heideggerian thing in itself was broken as we began to evolve forms of art, language, and urbanism. The internet is not revolutionary. The internet is the connection of nodes. It is travel over distance. The expansion of humans out of Africa into Europe represents a violent dislocation of an animal species out of its habitat, resulting in a war against the native Neanderthal, in rape, interspecies sex, violence, and mixing. We are all descendants of rapists. The taboo against rape jokes conceals our eternal history. Language itself is the dislocation of ideas from their origin. We speak of food in the absence of food. The symbol takes on a life of its own. Here, the origin of time and of dislocation. In the pre-conscious animal structure of the mind, there is no time. There is only the flow state. There is the ever-present immediacy of the world without conceptions of past or future. When we refer to food through language, we can refer to food in the past. We can conjecture about food in the future. We can imagine past worlds and conjure up future worlds. We begin to create realities separate from our immediate senses. The priest is principally attacked because he goes against nature, yet nature produced the priest. So what is meant by this attack? By nature and the natural, we are hearkening back to our pre-conscious animal mind, where there is no past, no future, only the present, the flow state, the physical, the sensuous, the strong, the healthy, the sexual, the visceral, the feeling of hunger and satiation, the constant ebb of the waves of life flashing before our eyes in a constant strobing dance as the sun whirls around us like one of a billion shining stars in the blur of night and day, cycling around us like fairies and demons, to hunt and be hunted, to pursue and be pursued, to penetrate and be penetrated. The animal world, according to Freud, contains only sex and death. The priest, in his Puritanism, in his dislocation, attempts to desexualize the world, to attack sexuality in itself as evil. The priest declares war on the world. And then we've got an essay here on Orwell versus Huxley. It's not really an essay, it's like a page of writing. Orwell's 1984 imagines control via punishment and surveillance, whereas Huxley's Brave New World imagines control via hedonism and addiction. Both mechanisms of control are ancient. The bread and circuses of Rome are predated by ancient sex and drug rituals which predate civilization. I'm gonna have to fix that. There's a double predate there. Let's see. Tribal gossip is known to any small town citizen. It functions as well as any surveillance state in labeling and shaming outliers. Is there a mechanism of control outside the carrot of Huxley and the stick of Orwell? I suggest that despair and the degradation of agency constitute a separate mechanism of control from the first two. When a person is overweight, they look at themselves in the mirror and they are ashamed. They feel a deep sense of self-hate. Mainstream society affirms their brokenness and tells them to embrace themselves and to love themselves. If they accept this myth, they become infantilized by a motherly ideology. they lose their agency and power. In fact, agency and power become anathema. Kaczynski referred to over-socialization, but here over-infantilization might be a better term. Those who are extreme escapists into video games or fandoms might be ashamed of themselves for living in a fantasy world, for ignoring real problems, for running away from some deep Freudian angst. Here again, consumer capitalism offers the soft embrace of a mother's touch, which tells the addict that everything is okay and provides community in the form of conventions and Discord servers and figurines and Tumblr pages. Disturbingly, the lines between anime fandom, furry fandom, and porn fandom are increasingly blurred. This return to the womb is clearly Huxleyan. However, what effect does it have on the so-called normal person too ashamed to embrace full infantilization? Living in a society surrounded by babies produces its own separate disease. The boomer conservative bemoans the millennial snowflake. It is true that even the most milquetoast defense of normalcy results in accusations of homophobia, of transphobia, of racism, and so on with Orwellian consequences. However, there is a sense in which the existence of overwhelming consumerism need not be constantly defended by punishment. Hedonism exists as an infection, both within the population at large and within the individual. The inability of society to rid itself of this Sisyphean masturbation, and the inability of the individual to rid himself of this addiction leads to a deep sense of despair. This despair debilitates the individual who believes they cannot change anything. All right, that's that little series of paragraphs. And then the last new essay I had for you was "The Economy Demands Imperialism." Anti-war critics on the left and right bemoan the waste of trillions of dollars on far-off conflicts. The left argues that this money could go toward education, healthcare, welfare, and food stamp programs. The right argues that this money could go toward border patrols, walls, deportations, a national youth league, maybe a national sport, what would we say, national youth sports league. I wanted to say something there. I wanted to imply something. Let's say athletic programs. Let's say athletic programs. National youth athletic programs, infrastructure, public works, conservation, and other such projects. In each case, the left and right imagine that there is a set number of dollars in the bank of the American government. Just as a child removes coins from his piggy bank to buy a toy, so too does the American government allocate dollars toward war rather than domestic spending. But does such an American bank actually exist? The closest thing the American government has to a national bank is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve does not contain a reserve of money. Instead, the Reserve prints money out of thin air, much to the chagrin of libertarians. What gives this money value? Firstly, each dollar has value because of the religious worship afforded the dollar by the American public. Put in less extreme terms, the American public trusts the government enough to believe the lie that the dollar has worth. But America is not an isolated autarky. Each year, America becomes more and more dependent on the international economy. Call centers are outsourced to India, to the Philippines, to Jamaica. Manufacturing is outsourced to China. How can Americans afford to pay for all these goods and services from the third world? The answer lies in the power of the dollar. Just as domestic audiences have been bamboozled into believing in the power of the dollar, so too have international audiences. They believe the dollar means something. Yet what keeps this system in place? What prevents some rebel from standing up and saying, "No, I won't use your funny money"? What we can see forming here is a problem of enforcement, similar to the situation faced by a police force. The police can never outnumber all potential criminals, because each citizen is a potential criminal. Therefore, the police must concentrate their energies on the margins in the hope that through strategic enforcement of the law, they might dissuade would-be criminals from tempting the wrath of the state. Through this analogy, the claim that America is the world's policeman becomes clearly understandable. Let's fix that. Clearly understandable. America's economic power is a phantasm, much like the rule of law. It exists as a religion or mimetic virus which keeps the citizenry in line through blind adherence to authority. When a nation steps out of line, America becomes the policeman. At home, the police brutally shoot and beat citizens in horrible games of Simon Says. Abroad, the American military sodomizes rebels and mutilates children. Is there any end in sight? America is an empire like any other. Empires rise and fall. Rome, for example, collapsed in the 1st century. Its rule of law was destroyed, its ethnic stock was humiliated, it became a parody of its former self. Yet the empire limped on, even expanding and growing and winning new victories for several hundred years. America has not yet descended into open Caesarism and dictatorship. Even when it does, we can expect that the American system will live on for several hundred years. What of the Soviet Union? Did it not collapse so suddenly, like buildings hit by planes? Is America not vulnerable to the same fate? Whatever one thinks about the events of 2001, it's clear that 1991 was a controlled demolition. In 1956, the Hungarians revolted against the Soviet Union. Nationalism intoxicated the people, and they were willing to sacrifice their lives for the cause of freedom. Something akin to religious revelation spread over the masses. They awaited salvation at the hands of the Americans. And yet, when the Soviet tanks began to slaughter the innocents and the military marched in to imprison the martyrs, the resistance was exposed as a fever dream. What was different in 1991? Between 1989 and 1991, the East German government was posed to treat the would-be revolutionaries with the same violent opposition seen in 1956. But an order came from Moscow: stand down. Stand down? For what reason? For what purpose? Why even bother living in a world without communism? It is clear that the leadership of the Soviet Union in the late 1980s did not believe in communism. They were not willing to sacrifice for communism. They engineered the revolution from within. The fall of the Soviet Union led to a form of radical monopolization of resources by so-called oligarchs of Russia. It is these oligarchs who orchestrated the fall of the Soviet Union. Are there oligarchs in the United States poised to engineer a collapse of the system? In short, no. The Soviet Union was treacherously betrayed by capitalists from within its ranks, eager to join the ranks of global vulture capitalism. For oligarchs in the United States, there is no alternative. In fact, these oligarchs already have everything they want. They have no incentive to engineer a collapse. America will live on, and the dollar system will live on, and those who oppose the dollar system must be crushed. Gaddafi, Hussein, Assad, and now Iran will each face extermination. There is no amount of money that could be considered too much to spend to protect the dollar system. If the dollar system is destroyed, it doesn't matter how much money is spent on education, healthcare, border control, or infrastructure. Hyperinflation will lead to a collapse of the American civilization. The only potential alternative to the American-led system is the Chinese system. It is doubtful if the Chinese actually want to lead the world, or if they are simply content to remain a junior party of America. Whatever their intention, America is currently heavily dependent on the West for economic growth. Chinese exports require Western markets. If China took steps to seriously undermine the dollar system, it would not only collapse the West, but it would also collapse the Chinese economy. In such a scenario, the outcome would be a world war in which China would be exterminated. It might be that the coronavirus is a preview of what such a conflict would look like. Haplogroup-specific viruses wiping out millions without a single bullet being fired. The Christian living in the Roman Empire may have dreamed of the end of that empire, but his dreams did not come to fruition for some 500 years. Even then, the idea of Rome lived on in the Franks, in Germany and Britain, and the Romanovs. Whatever gripes you may have with America, America, and perhaps the idea of America, will live on as a second Rome. Rather than complain or side with the Chinese, it may be wiser to accept the rules of the game and attempt to gain power within the system. So that is what I've read. Let's see if there are any entertaining comments. The homogeneity of a state exists on a spectrum. To put it in practical terms, a totally ethnically heterogeneous state cannot survive. What would that even mean, total heterogeneous? I don't even know what that would mean. Wouldn't these monarchies be homogeneous? I argue no. I argue that the monarchies had a separate bloodline from the commoner. It seems like there's a birth of hybrids, warrior priest, priestly merchant. Relative homogeneity of a state is necessary. That's all I argue for. Okay, is that's not nationalism. I guess you could say, again, I don't think homogeneity is, because I conceive of America and China as a single state. And the question of what is the state becomes confused in international terms. So China and America are clearly not homogeneous. Like globalism is not homogeneous. So I think we have an international state. I think we have a global government. It's not open. It's not, you don't vote on the global government, but I think we have a global government, and I think it's very diverse. So I don't think that's necessary. You underestimate the control apparatus of the modern state. Common interests under God, yet Christian nations go to war. People in these new multi-ethnic states are being homogenized into deracinated consumers. Identity informs politics and finance and other things, and then the next breath tries to refute the existence of Russian identity. I haven't refuted the existence of Russian identity. I said the Romanovs are not ethnically Russian, which is not really refutable. You're missing the point. Bloomberg 2020 political theory. He sets the terms, then refutes the terms. Yeah, I'm using the historical definition of nationalism, and I'm explaining why it's not a good ideology. So it would be the same thing if I explained communism. I mean, if I did it with communism, would that be a bad thing? So yeah, you're describing what I'm doing, which is not bad. He goes on about the same point without providing new developments. This is why this is boring. I hope it bores you to the point that you stop arguing and stop watching. Joking. No nationalist of any kind allowed in a police state. I'll make my Amish sect. Why not join the Amish? He subscribed to this archaic caste system, which is not archaic. It's very modern. It's contemporary. It's in the present day. We have a caste system. Even though he said the castes are mixed and misplaced in modern society, his touchstone is modernity. Yeah, I'm living in the real world. Cosmopolitan sect, localist dirt people sect. Kenneth holds all these contradictory, self-refuting views. Not true. Imagine being attracted. Okay, I can't say that. Amish. Let's ban. Can I ban this word? Or is this word too popular to ban? I want to ban the W word. I want to ban the big W. Because it's too controversial. Where are we going? Jump into the studio. I don't want to have to read. Oh, I just got a strike. Amazing. A copyright owner asked us to take down the video. Amazing. For my rock bottom video. That's awesome. Thank you to whoever that was. I'm not going to name that person. Thank you for the copyright strike. Thanks for taking my compilation of clips and deciding to attack me on that basis. Can I download it? I guess I can't download it. I guess I will delete the video. It had some good views. I guess I am forced to delete that video. All right, I deleted it, YouTube. This is the platform. This is the lovely platform. You know, if people wanted to move over to D Live, I would be fine with that, but there's really no there is really no I don't know what to do with this. Copyright owner asked us to take down your video because they believe it contains material. Your video was removed from YouTube. Your channel received a strike. If you get 3 strikes, you will be terminated. Strikes expire after 90 days as long as you complete copyright school. Oh my goodness. Contact claimant. I have to go through. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much to this guy. Here is the email. So apparently a man was watching my videos, noticed I was using his content, and then decided to copyright strike me. Is there a point? I don't know that there's even a point at this juncture. I don't even know if there's a point. Deleting the video will not remove the strike. Excellent. So happy. Counter notification. Reinstate a video. My personal information will be shared with the claimant. That's wonderful. Wow. This information will be used to file a lawsuit against you. I'm so happy. Ah, man, what a wonderful day. It's really heating up, isn't it? Well, you know what that means, guys. Time to private all of my videos. So you better get them while they're still good. If you like any videos, I hope you downloaded some of the videos, because if what I think it is there's an algorithm that searches through all my videos and notifies these people and says, hey, this guy's stealing your content. Do you want to copy strike him? And they go, yeah, of course I want to copy strike him. Let's go. I hate everyone in the world. And then they copy strike me. And then that's what happens, right? So time to start privating videos. See, I've gotten plenty of copyright claims before, but it was just the algorithm saying, "Oh, you've used content from another video, so this is copyrighted. You will not be monetized, but you don't have a strike." Now, apparently, this guy was notified, and he said, "I don't like this this channel, so I'm going to just." File suit against this guy. Legal complaint. He hosted my video in a compilation. Lovely people. Lovely people on the internet. Lovely platform we have here. Lovely internet we have. Lovely copyright law. Lovely fair use. It's good stuff. At least John Locke is dead. At least nobody owns the rights to John Locke's treatise on human understanding. Because then I would be in deep trouble if that was the case. So I'm very pleased to see that. I don't even remember why I was on. Oh yeah, I was gonna add the W word. Is going to go into the settings and add the W word, because I don't want to read that word, because if I read that word, the algorithm's going to say this guy doesn't belong in the platform. So beautiful. Hopefully that works. Oh, okay. Catboy, you are in a timeout. I don't like your username, and you're getting around censorship by using alternative words. So let's ban that word. Thank you for trying to escape the censor. All right. Euroscepticism is a legitimate and growing political position in Europe. It's not a legitimate position. Things can change. Do we have to do a video on Brexit? I mean, you're just spouting nonsense. So I guess we have to do a refutation of Brexit. Brexit is not real. Brexit is either going to result in Britain becoming American, Chinese, or reintegrated with the EU. Those are the two choices. Brexit is not real. Brexit is fake. Scientology is doing what early Christians did. The new priestly elite are a cadre of live streamers proselytizing to white collar men. Cromwell here. Oh, wonderful. Britain isn't Europe. Your name is the definition of cringe. England lives in an American bubble. I want to be in a middle class man with a wife, 2 children, a dog, a nice garden. How many of you amateur philosophers are going to buy into these Ubermensch memes? How many stupid people are going to buy into the idea that powerless people have power? How many people are going to buy into the idea that your foot makes decisions for your brain? How many people are going to buy into the idea that individuals invent language, or that individuals create religions, or that the masses of people create ideologies? Elites could not give people what they didn't have the capacity to possess for themselves. The possibility of language and religion are innate. Yeah, that kind of rationalism I'm going to have to disagree with, because people are not born with language. That's like a self-refuting point. Riffing on lungs. How about you go on Discord with them? Yeah, if you want to come on the Discord, feel free. Let's go. Why am I here? I should be asleep. Instead, I'm lying here with my phone in my hands. That's like saying Cambodians could have invented the bicycles because they've been able to ride them. Europeans. Okay, I'm not even going to read it. Let's see. Okay, we're not going to read that. Jockle imploding. A Hobbesian nature, man against man. Elites. He's going over old ground. It's true. I say the same things over and over again. There's nothing new under the sun here. Do you have an ideology? I don't remember the last time I read an essay. I don't have an ideology. I visited Naples. Americans should be banned from commenting. You have a Breitbart view of what goes on here. Is that response to me, or what's going on? EU respecter. Let's see. Language. Sleep. Okay, Mr. Cool Mug went to bed rather than arguing against me. People talking about ethnicity. Let's see. Yahweh promised Israel a descendant of King David would sit on the throne of the Israelite kingdom forever. Then the Assyrians came, then the Babylonians, then the Greeks and the Romans. Yeah, pretty demoralizing. We need Hakan for this debate. I don't know who Hakan is. I'm gonna ban the word Catboy, just because I don't want to have to scroll through the chat and have to like read through that. That's not the discussion I want. This is why I shouldn't do This is why I should not be doing live streams anymore. Let's see. Modernity. Ambient. Oh my goodness. Fourth density. If you were a mod right now, I would demod you. This is just... I have to add so many words, so many topics. I wish I was like an old man sometimes with this live streaming thing. I wish I had like 2 viewers and they were both like respectful people who made like nice comments. Instead, it's just terrible. I'm learning more and more why I should not be doing live streaming. But I wanted to say a bunch of things, so I felt live streaming would be better than making separate videos. When Ken streams, I style my hair and his fashion, change to the most similar outfit. That's kind of funny. That's a good joke. The Federal Reserve prints money, much to the chagrin of my trailer park audience. I don't know why that's funny. It's not like true. It's just sometimes random stuff cracks me up. I want Ken to be the next Jennifer Rubin. Me too. He has the shirt fabric for the star-spotted cosmic waters, the Allfather enrobed by his creation. I guess I do kind of have a star-studded shirt. Mimetic theory is cringe. What if ideas were like viruses? You could say cringe. Everything is, I don't know. Saying things are cringe is kind of cringe. Bruce brutality is not real. No, it is very real. Watch, search Simon Says police shoot innocent man. Police brutality is very real. I'm only going to state this one last time. I'm so glad this is the last time. This way of interpreting political evolution implies that moral ideas of legislators are independent of social causation. No, I think there's such a thing as social causation. I just think it's top down, whereas you think it's bottom up. This view cuts under a sociological theory of politics, repeats exaggerated ideas about the influence of rulers. The case for the cessation of police brutality. Stop falling for a bunch of words strung together. Read one more time. Stop exaggerating the influence of rulers as if they are independent of social causation. You're using this word social causation. What you mean by it is that the masses of people are the cause behind ideology, which I do not believe. I believe that sociology is engineered from the top down. The executive function is distributed, not throughout the population, but hierarchically distributed. Straw manning. Let's see. Plato's cave conveniently implies my exaggerated view of what they're supposedly implying. I have no arguments. Imperium of Man. Mr. Coolmog has left. The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, right up your alley. You should do similar stream like your Loki one. I don't know that I would read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, because he just makes empirical arguments about God when God is not an empirical claim. Like, I don't believe, and I don't think anyone, like, I don't think the Jews believed that there was like a physical body called God, and like if you just went up the right mountain, or if you went high enough in the sky or deep enough in the earth, you would find a dude with a physical body called God. Now, again, there are some parts of the Bible where that's confused, and there's sort of a transition between a more idolatric view of God, where God has a body, to what then develops through Judaism is the idea that God doesn't have a body. So it's a development that happens. There are parts of the Bible that contradict itself. That's why I'm not like a biblical literalist. But I think that essentially the view of Judaism and Platonism and Christianity and Islam tends toward the idea, maybe not Islam, but they tend toward the idea that God doesn't have a body. So if God doesn't have a body, God is not an empirical claim. There's no object called God that we can label. Oh, this is God. Found him, proved God. No, God's an idea. In the same way that, the word attraction, what does attraction mean? Attraction's an idea. And so when we see the attraction between the proton and the electron, we say, okay, well, they move together, they move toward one another, so therefore there's this force, there's an attractive force. But are you ever going to find an object called attraction? No. So for me, God is an ideal, God's an archetype or whatever, but God's not some kind of empirical thing that I can point to and say, there is God. Look, I found him. Or, didn't find God, therefore, I guess evidence of absence is absence, or what is that? The fact that there's no evidence for his existence is evidence for his non-existence. The fact that we can't find evidence for him existing, but I'm saying that you would never find existence for God, because God, when I talk about God, I'm not making an empirical claim. I'm not saying there is a body or there is an object. I'm saying, to me, in the most basic sense, is if I'm going to talk about God, I'm going to talk about the force behind the universe, which for Schopenhauer is the will. So the will of attraction, the will of repulsion, the will of things to be as they are, that is God. The will which animates the universe, which animates representation and materiality, is God. So that's God for me, which is not an empirical claim. You would never find him anywhere, but it's a label that I put on the totality of the force of the universe, the creative force behind the universe. That's what I call God. So I think Richard Dawkins, as far as I know, he's going to make like a Bertrand Russell type teacup argument. Well, you could say there's a teacup around the sun, but that's not like evidence that there's actually a teacup. God's not a teacup. So atheist argumentation don't even address, like, what is God? Is God an object? I'm not claiming that God is an object. I'm claiming that God is a syntactical category of forces that governs the creativity of the universe. Now, in terms of God as a person, like if I pray to Jesus to give me strength, then you could say that's a little bit different. Is there going to be a Jesus that I'm going to find that I can point to and prove that Jesus existed? And so that's a little bit, now we're getting, I guess, closer to empirical claims. But for me, I take it as an archetype. I take Jesus is a picture of what a perfect man would look like, and we should aspire to Jesus. And Jesus exists within and beyond. He exists within us, and he exists beyond us, and he permeates human consciousness. And so we, as humanity together, we're the body of Christ. So that's how I approach those things, which, then you can get into like inter-religious traditions and like, well, I'm a Hindu, so I don't believe in Jesus, and how could you argue that Christianity is better than Hinduism? That's when you start getting into something difficult. But ultimately, I view atheism as a religion. And so if I was to read the God Delusion, it would be to refute it, but I just don't think the God Delusion is important enough to spend time reading. And also, it's copyrighted. And as we've seen, I'm getting basically kicked off YouTube with the copyright stuff. I love to do compilations. I love to show people what's out there in a way that is fair use, and I should not receive any copyright strike for, but I'm being persecuted here. So get on Discord. What's the big W? If you ban the letter W, you will die of dehydration. Well, that's a good reminder. Come on, guys. Where's the fair use? You hate to see it. Name it and claim it. Copyright sensitivity, re-education. Yeah, I have to go through copyright school. Let's go through copyright school. Where's my copyright? Channel active copyright strikes. I need to go to copyright school. Attend copyright school for your strike to expire. Is everyone ready to go to copyright school right now? Please take a moment to watch this video on copyright and answer the following questions. If content is available on the internet, it's in the public domain, therefore okay to upload to YouTube. False. The following items may be copyright protected. Musical works, videos, photographs, all the above. All uses of copyrighted content without permission of the union are considered copyright infringement. Deleting a video that was removed for copyright will get rid of the strike. False. Okay, continue. Evaluation. How is this true? There are protections such as fair use in certain jurisdictions. How is my use not fair? Oh, that makes me mad. See, I believe in fair use, and I used fair use to use someone's clip in a compilation of clips, and then I got a copyright strike. So the law, as I perceive it, how it should be, how we should interpret the law, would mean that there is such a thing as fair use, but YouTube doesn't believe that. But when I answer YouTube's question and say there's no such thing as fair use, it says, no, actually there is such a thing as fair use, which is like the most infuriating. Congratulations, you've successfully completed copyright school. Okay, I've completed copyright school. Are you going to give me a pat on the back here? So I still have an active strike which will expire on May 13th. Amazing. Beautiful. I'm so happy that this is happening. How could Ken's channel ever recover from a ban? DLive is just as bad. DLive is not as bad. You can like watch movies on DLive and play music and all kinds of stuff. But I'm sure DLive will get just as bad in the future. It will take him years to rebuild his user base. That's true. If I get banned from YouTube, you won't hear from me for years. I've got like 50 core followers. I've got people who follow me on Twitter and DLive, so there are maybe 50 people who would stick with me. And I've got people on Discord. I've got like 30 people on Discord, so maybe I'd say 30 core followers of people who would be able to find me if I was banned, but everyone else would be totally lost. Kenneth, if taking over the government is going to work, why don't we take over YouTube? We can control our output and save the world. Okay, well, how are you going to take over YouTube? You're going to need to buy out YouTube with money or create a cult within YouTube. Stick on YouTube. You're a pleasant, likable chat. It's your ideas I'm gunning for. Well, I appreciate that, Shania. And even though we've had words and things have gotten heated, at the end of the day, it's just the internet. And I appreciate your engagement. We obviously disagree at very important points, fundamental points, but I appreciate that sentiment, Shania. We may argue, we may get heated, we may exchange the banter, but that's okay. I appreciate you. I'm not even going to talk about what it was because, like, basically, here's what I imagine YouTube did. YouTube has an algorithm. It looked through my videos. It said, aha, we found a clip that was from another channel. So it took this clip and then it notified the channel. It said, this guy's using your clip. Is that okay? The guy then checked out my channel and he said, no, I want to ban this guy. And then he said, yes, I will attack him, sue him, steal his money, send him to jail. And that's what happened. So there's no, if I talk about him, then he'll just have, you know, more ammunition to destroy me with his lawfare. Mail received from John Locke's estate. Dude, I wish. That would be awesome. I would go toe to toe with John Locke's estate. I probably wouldn't, but it would be cool. It would be a lot. Getting a letter in the mail from John Locke's estate would honestly, that would be maybe not worth losing my channel, but it would be a good way to go down. I'd rather go down by like John Locke's estate than some of these things. Have you ever considered working for TRS or Nick Fuentes? I'd snap you up in no time as a co-star. Are you saying you work with those people and you want me to be a co-star? Here's the problem. I criticize nationalism because I believe it's not well founded as an ideology. I think it conflates things which are true with things which are ridiculous, and through this kind of shell game, it convinces people to make really grave sacrifices. People are sacrificing careers, relationships, marriages, money, power. People are sacrificing all kinds of things over this nationalist cult, and so I criticize that. And so Nick, because he is a self-described nationalist, that's his brand. I'm toxic for him. I mean, he has no use for me. You know, if we ever happen to, not like, you look at his audience, he's got like 100 times my audience or more. So, or 100 to 1,000 times my audience. So I'm not even in the same league as these people, and I'm not trying to compete for their audience. I don't really want to speak to their audience necessarily. I don't want to like it's not that I don't want to share a platform with them necessarily, but they have no incentive in giving me a platform because I undermine their message. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see why these people would have these people have an incentive against shutting me out, not in bringing me on. And I'm not looking for a platform. A lot of these people, I think they're crashing and burning. Now, clearly, I'm having some trouble with YouTube. Clearly, I'm having problems with YouTube. But at the end of the day, these people are going to have major problems. And when look, Trump has declared that right wingers are as dangerous as ISIS. That's his appointed Chris Wray, FBI director, said right wingers are just as dangerous as ISIS. That's Trump. So when Trump gets out, when you get Buttigieg, when you get Sanders, when you get Warren, when you get Biden, any Democrat, or even a moderate Republican, even a Rubio or a Cruz or any of these guys, I think it's going to get worse for these people. And so it's very tragic for me to see this fallacy of investment, sunk cost fallacy, where they say, well, we've sacrificed everything for nationalism, therefore we're going to dig our heels ever deeper into it, when it's not a well-founded ideology. When, again, are people ethnocentric? Yeah. Can we talk about that without believing that, everything has to be geared toward creating nationalism, like in a strict sense? Yeah, we can do that. So, but unfortunately, when you start making these sacrifices, it's very hard to walk it back and be reasonable. So there's a huge problem going on with those people, and it's going to intensify, and the heat's going to come down on them. And even people who argue against them in an intelligent way are going to face the wrath. So I'm kind of making the arguments while I still can, and I don't think anyone who isn't providing mindless entertainment really has a future on YouTube in the long run. But right now, I'm reaching people, I'm making connections, and so there's still some productivity to YouTube. I'm just going to use the platform until they kick me off. And again, like I said, I could follow the rules perfectly. I think just because I'm not providing mindless entertainment, I think I'm eventually going to get kicked off. But we'll see. Euroscepticism is going down. Right-wing countries are realigning, reorganizing within the EU. Brexit belongs to the past. Sorry, I was gone. He got a timeout, which is limited. I'm going to get banned today. Yeah, you're coming close. What if your username includes a banned word? That's just the beginning, my sweet summer child. I like your stuff. Thank you, Charles. Scroll up here. If you had to choose between being a homosexual and a cat boy, what would it be? Okay. Well, I think other people have been posed this question, and you have to define homosexual. Do you mean someone who's attracted to men, or do you mean someone who penetrates men or is penetrated by men? Am I gonna have to be an active penetrator? Am I gonna be a top? Am I gonna be a bottom? What does being a cat boy entail? Do I just have to put cat ears? Do I have to wear a cat ear tiara? Is that it? Do I also have to, suck on oddly shaped water bottles? Do I have to wear a skirt? Do I have to watch anime? What are the I don't actually know what the definition, the strict, when people use these words. If being a cat boy, if part of being a cat boy is I have to have gay sex, then it's what's the difference? But if it's I only have to wear the ears, if that's it, if I just have to wear the ears, then it's okay, not a big change. I mean, I still do everything the same, but I've got some cat ears on. Or I have to wear an anime shirt. If I have to start wearing a skirt, then we start getting into sexual territory. I don't know about that. But so it kind of, if I could be a celibate homosexual, then basically that would just mean I wouldn't be attracted to women, which would actually be kind of a huge advantage because I find that to be very distracting. If I could be a celibate homosexual, that would be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind that. But if I have to be active, if I have to get pounded or do the pounding, that would give me pause. So you have to really strictly define these terms for me to give you an exact answer. Top chat ruins the quality of your videos. What does that mean? Do I have it on top chat? Do I have that setting? Made him laugh. What's today's topic? You gotta rewind. Do a stream comparing the Satanic Bible to the God Delusion. It would be fun. The Satanic Bible is just hedonism and like Aleister Crowley stuff, and then the God Delusion is just like basic Bertrand Russell empiricist argumentation. So I don't know that that would be very fun. He's scared of confronting Dawkins. Try Sam Harris. He makes compelling arguments about questioning the cave of your mind. I don't know that Sam Harris is very compelling or convincing. I haven't listened to him for a very long time. But there's other stuff there. I have a lot of topics that I want to talk about, so I don't really want to get into like Sam Harris. Like Sam Harris was cool when I was like 12 years old, and now it's like I feel like I've moved beyond that. Islamic God so impersonal and transcendent, he calls himself we. Atheist arguments are forever slave to Christianity. Funny debate between Jay and Stefan. Yeah, I haven't seen that. Maybe I'll check it out. Generative anthropology, why it matters at all. That debate was nauseating. Heard Arvel saying GA is helpful and can be informative, but needs a foundational structure. Is that a new video that he's put up? Because I haven't seen it, but you know, his take on generative anthropology is like, I don't think he would categorically say that everything that generative anthropology claims or suggests is wrong entirely. Like, I think he would admit that there, for instance, is like a hierarchy and there's like top-down social modes and stuff like that. But I think he has a problem with the moral nihilism. And I think there are limits to moral nihilism. I think for me, I guess, I don't know. I guess I'm less dogmatic about it. But what he made a very good point. When he came on the stream and he said, in order to have a successful religion, you need a dogma. And so there is a necessity to have dogma, and you do sort of need moral realism to have dogma. So ultimately, like, moral realism, I think, is functionally necessary. Like, I think moral nihilism necessarily makes you a weak person. Like, I don't think you can be a strong community. Maybe an individual Nietzschean can be strong. But I think a community, to be successful, you really have to be a moral realist. And that's not a claim about like a philosophical argument for why it's good or bad. It's just an observation that I think religious communities that are founded in moral realism are just objectively stronger than communities which coalesce around moral nihilism. Like, a gaggle of Nietzscheans is basically a bunch of useless individualists. When you start getting into Hinduism and Christianity and Islam and Judaism, then you start to get a foundational structure. So I kind of have to agree with him from like a phenomenological perspective, I guess, which I don't think, you know, that kind of pragmatic defense of moral realism is not it's not an actual defense of it, because it's not engaging with the claim that morality is real. It's engaging with a secondary claim, which is that claiming that morality is real and objective and universal, making that claim happens to have sociological benefits. So, but I don't know. I don't know that I can really make the deeper arguments there. Christianity is awful. I'll debate you on Christianity, Hector. I've been trying to lead up to that with my descriptions of Judaism and post-humanism and talking about nature and Faustianism. So I'll have a debate on that. Human agency cannot interfere with the outcome of pre-established chain. That is the point I have made. Well, who established the chain? The chain was established by hierarchies. So my point is that we can talk about calcified ideologies, but ultimately they don't come from the masses themselves in a genealogical sense. Stefan made terrible comparisons, said hunger wasn't sensual. That's interesting. You should tell them you have a learning disability. Well, I passed the test. I got 3 out of 4, and apparently I passed the test, but it didn't take away the strike. Strike is still here. May 13th. Yeah, May 13th. quite a while. See you come summertime. Yeah. Kenneth has 30 hardcore followers. I don't know if they would die for me, but they would follow. Like, if I got banned off YouTube, they would follow me. Like, if I started a new YouTube channel and I posted the link in my Twitter, then about 30 people would follow me. But I don't think anybody would die for me. I wonder what the average height of his viewership is. Well, let's look at the analytics for the stream. The max concurrent viewers, we had 20 or 37. Looks like our max. And we hit that around 6:30-ish, about 20 minutes ago. So we started off, we were rising, and now we maxed at about 37 peak viewership. So that's my average. My average is somewhere between like 20 and 30 for the last hour of the stream. So I'm about 25 is my average viewership. But the height of the viewership is somewhere around 37. I think I've reached 50 on the Iran stream. So for me, if I get 20 viewers, that's kind of low. 50 is high. And somewhere in the middle. So 25 is somewhere in the middle. Not wrong when he says your argument is religious. Ken reaches people beyond all ideologies, ethnicities, religions. Hashtag inspiring. I hope that... Oh, we can't say that. Go, attack, copyright, jail. Yeah, that's a quote. What is the average life situation of a Kenneth Brown viewer? Single mom. Senator, doctor, lawyer, philanthropist, gigolo. Think tank policy analyst, dad, dog lover. I love dog lovers. How would you describe myself? Dog lover? Something about that rolls off the tongue. Dog lover. Yeah. Single mom. I'm a single mom dog lover running for Senate. My experience includes medical school and working for a think tank. Hindu mystic, inner city youth. And has tried so hard, all the banned words lost in time like tears in the rain. Time to log off. Trump calling us right-wingers dangerous is a play to increase our sexual mystique. I don't think so. Ken, slow down. I think you're getting too big. I heard Nick and TRS want to take you out as your log streams were stealing views. Are you the same guy who... Are you making fun of yourself? Or like... Who was the guy? Was it Charles who suggested I get on those platforms? I don't think I'm getting too big. I got to... Open your eyes. I've seen chat timeouts you people wouldn't believe. Nationalism means anything. Charlie Kirk calls himself a nationalist. Okay, well then it's a meaningless term and we shouldn't identify with meaningless terms. I'm using the definition that's historical and I'm arguing against that. We are an elite team of YouTube intellectuals. I believe I deserve moderation power. I don't know that I can do that unless you debate me on Christianity or veganism. Sharpening our minds so one day we may rise up. I would use my powers not for, I can't read this sentence. My own agenda, which is correct, yeah. I wouldn't hold a religious conviction if I didn't believe it to be true. Copyright strike, we are... I'm not going to read that. We don't know that Ken isn't currently wearing a skirt. That's true. You really don't know. I'm not appealing to any form of nationalism. I'm appealing to my form of nationalism. So if you would define nationalism for me, Shania, I would argue against it. Ken, what are your top 3 classical musicians to listen to? I don't listen to a whole lot of classical music. Like, if I'm driving, I'll listen to classical music on the radio, and they're like, that was Rachmaninoff in the 3rd Symphony, and that was Prokofiev, and that was Bach, and that was Beethoven. So I can list off to you, like, classical musicians, but if I say, oh, this one was a good classical musician, this one is my favorite. I mean, I certainly like certain pieces. I like Prokofiev. I like, what is it, Dance of the Nights, or the one based off Romeo and Juliet. I like that piece. I like Dvorak, or how do you say it? Dvorak. I like Dvorak. I think it's Birth of the New World or something like that. I mean, what are the classic, like Beethoven's Fifth or something like that? I mean, I'm not really I don't get deep in enough into it to like be able to say, "Oh, I on a good authority I can tell you this is my favorite piece and this is why." I listen, I mean, if I'm doing some exercise, I'll listen to some Eurobeat stuff. Um pop, some techno pop, some stuff like that. I'm trying to think of there's this one, Miles Above You. I don't know who does that. But some of that techno pop, Eurobeat type stuff, really poppy, tinny, sort of high, low bass, high treble, that sort of stuff, high energy sort of stuff. So I'll listen to some of that. But I've listened to a lot of stuff in my time. I've enjoyed a lot of different kinds of music. I've enjoyed some rap music. I've enjoyed some hip hop. So I'm not. I mean, I've enjoyed classical. I'm not that deep into it to like say, yeah, Beethoven's Fifth, that's the best, or like there are some that I know I can say, oh, this is good. I like Handel's Messiah. I like some of that stuff. But to me, it's based on my mood. Like if I'm in a sort of classical mood, classical music appeals to me. If I'm in a more of a kind of a poppy mood, pop music appeals to me. If I'm in kind of a DMX mood, the DMX appeals to me, you know? So for me, I'm not like a constant person. I'm not a stable mind where it's all classical all the time. But that doesn't mean I like every genre of music. It doesn't mean I like every type. I don't like dubstep. I don't like the wub wub. I don't like that bass. I don't like it when they drop the bass. I say hold on to your bass. Have you had profound spiritual experiences? I don't know if I could, that's a comparative statement. So, but I would say I've had, I've had experiences where I was dealing with a dead person's stuff and I heard the cry of a wild animal and I was convinced that it was that person's spirit. I had an experience where I was kind of having a life moment and I was reading the book of Solomon in the Bible and I went out into the nature at night and I drank the waters of nature. So I've gone for 5-hour walks in the middle of the night in darkness. And those kind of messed with my mind. They kind of messed with my brain. That kind of sensory deprivation. So I would say those were kind of spiritual experiences for me. But people can say, "Oh, that's not spiritual. You need to literally see the face of God. You need to have an angel come down and talk to you." I haven't had really a spiritual experience where I feel like I'm hearing a divine voice commanding me, telling me to do something. So I wouldn't say I've had the most extreme spiritual experiences, but I felt at the time, I was like, oh, this is spiritual. I'm having a spiritual experience right now. Generative anthropology examines the foundations of sociality. I don't consider that moral nihilism. Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, I think like we use these words and it's kind of a nexus of like you have this sociological approach and then the people who are associated with it happen to be moral nihilists or something. I don't know, that's kind of rehashing old things, but you seem to talk about religion mostly from a sociological perspective or place of utility. Yeah, I definitely do that. Because I'm not really invested in some like particular religious sect. But I am trying to talk about Judaism and Christianity. I mean, I guess you could say I'm talking about it from a sociological perspective, but for me, the evolution of consciousness is not just mere sociology. Maybe you could define it that way, but it sort of depends on your perspective. I think that the transcendence of humanity and the transcendence and the evolution of consciousness, I think there's something spiritual to that, but you could say, spirituality is beyond consciousness. We could have that debate. If you had to give 3 tips on how others can become internet world famous, millions of adoring fans, what would they be? Don't do anything controversial. Focus on mindless entertainment. Be attractive. I would say those are 3 good tips. I have a militia of 30 people who follow me wherever I may go. Not, I wouldn't ever say a militia, but I have about 30 people who, if I got banned, would be able to find my new channel. You can only eat the same 3 meals every day for the rest of your life. What would it be? Must be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So probably we're gonna have some eggs in there. We're gonna have some eggs. We're gonna have some broccoli. I gotta love the broccoli. What else? What else would I'm getting hungry as I'm talking about this. Recently I've been eating a lot of turkey. Um I like salted meats like beef jerky. I don't eat it too often because it's expensive. But I like certain fruits. I would just make meals that would be extremely diverse meals. Like I would say, like, okay, we're gonna have an omelet. It's gonna be omelet with fruit on the side and have some kefir in there. We're gonna have for lunch. We're gonna have like turkey with I guess eggs would be in the breakfast, and then we're gonna have some maybe broccoli in the breakfast. Maybe have a salad with the sandwich. What else? I'm trying to think of things that I really love. Things that I really love to eat, or things that are good for me. I mean, if I had to choose, I would just like go to like some health food program and be like, these are the 3 meals that contain all the macronutrients, and then I'd force myself to eat that forever. But in terms of what I really like to eat, sometimes I get a hankering for crunchy stuff. Like, not like Lay's chips, not like potato chips, but I like pita chips. I like crunchy, I like toast maybe, some toast, some pita chips. Making myself hungry here. I like to make a little shake. I like to take like some almond milk. I'm actually transitioning out of the almond milk. I'm going more into kefir now. I haven't tried the shake with the kefir, but I like to take like a base, like a nice milky base, throw some cinnamon in there, some nutmeg, throw some powdered ginger in there, mix that up, make a little shake. What else do I like? I like, like sardines, like salty little fish. I like bigger fish too, but they just contain too much mercury because the elites have poisoned the ocean. So I can't eat the fish that I would like to eat without getting mercury poisoning. What else do I like? Things that think about the food pyramid. I mean, I avoid a lot of grains these days, but hey, I've enjoyed a good pasta. I've enjoyed a good pasta with like pesto. You have some tomato sauce, you have some butter. Butter's great. Love butter. What else do we like? Bagels. I love a good bagel with cream cheese. They got different flavors. They got like strawberry cream cheese, which is delicious. Jalapeno cream cheese, which is nice and spicy. What other? They've got salmon flavor, which is like kind of very artificial and processed, but tastes good. It tastes good. The salmon flavored cream cheese tastes good. A nice bagel, everything bagel with like the sesame seeds and the poppy seeds and just a little bit of onion in there, maybe a bit of garlic on my bagel with some nice cream cheese. Just putting tons of cream cheese on there. I like cheese. I don't eat cheese too much these days, but I like a good, nice, hard cheese. A nice, firm cheese. Not like soft, squishy cheese. I like firm. I don't want it to break my teeth, but I want something that really can bite into, like some firm cheese. I like prosciutto. Like prosciutto wrapped around some cheese, like some nice Gouda cheese or Munster. Like I want like a weird cheese. I don't want cheddar. I don't want typical cheese. I want like esoteric cheese. So I like some cheeses every now and then. I like sherbet, a nice good fruity sherbet, like an orange sherbet. What other kinds of foods? What other kinds of foods do I like? I mean, I do like chocolate. I eat a lot of raw chocolate, so no milk, no sugar, just baker's chocolate. I like that it's got like that mineral. It's got like iron content. It's got like zinc and copper. It just tastes good to me. I like oranges. I like fruits. I like bananas. I like mangoes. I like blueberries, raspberries. I don't eat a lot of peaches, but they're very tasty. Peaches are tasty. Pears are tasty. I haven't bought a pear in I don't know how long. Years since I bought a pear. But there's a lot of foods I consider to be tasty. I like Kit Kats as candy. I like Almond Joy. These are all the foods I haven't eaten in a while. like literally years. But I like almond joy, like Kit Kats with a bit of milk. I like I like sour candies. I like Sour Patch Kids. I like to eat so many Sour Patch Kids that my tongue starts to bleed from all the sourness, from all the citric acid. I like fruit roll-ups. That's a good one. I like I used to eat candy corn when I was really young, but I don't think it's that great today. What are some other good I mean, Snickers is okay. Snickers, I feel like they just try to put too much into it. Like they try to just there's just too much in the Snickers. I feel like Snickers would be better if they took out some. I want like a dark chocolate Snickers. I think that we need a dark chocolate Snickers with less sugar. I want a more like organic, healthy Snickers. What was there? There was like the Kudos bars. They're like I think it was like a Rice Krispie with mini M and M's. Those were good. Yeah, popped corn. Popcorn is good. Popcorn is tasty with some butter. Put some butter on that. Put some salt on that popcorn. It's pretty good. Put some cheddar cheese in there in that popcorn. It's pretty good. And you also have caramel corn. You have corn dogs. You go to the fair, you get a corn dog. You get, oof, I'm whacking everything around me. You get a nice corn dog. You get some cotton candy. That's delicious. You have different flavors of ice cream, the chocolate, the vanilla. I never liked pistachio very much. Always thought that was weird. But I like mint chocolate chip. You know, you got your Rocky Roads. You got all different kinds. You know, I like a mix. I like a swirl mixing together soft serve with the vanilla and the chocolate. You know, and you throw some condiments on there. You throw like maybe some M&Ms. You chop up some Oreos. You throw some Oreos on there. Maybe some Kit Kats. You make kind of like you top it with some condiments. Put the cherry on top. Put some whipped cream on there. Yeah, that's good stuff. What else do you got? There's a lot of good, tasty food. I haven't eaten any of this in a very long time. Like when I go to the store, I'm like, okay, I need this, 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 this. I don't, I don't mess around. I don't just buy whatever I want to buy. If I do, I treat myself with like something that I can excuse as like weird or healthy. Like, oh, I haven't tried this before. Let's try kombucha. Let's try something weird. But yeah, there's a lot of good food in the world. So we have our grains. We got like our pastas or bagels, cereals. I did like cereals. I used to eat a lot of cereal. You know, Cheerios, honey Cheerios, Kashi, different types of Kashi cereals. There's a lot of different kinds of good cereals out there. I used to order the grape nut cereal. You take that, you put it in some cottage cheese, you let it sit in the fridge overnight. You kind of get a grape nut. Maybe I'm grossing people out with this, but it's very nutritious. You know, beans. I don't eat a lot of legumes these days, but used to eat baked beans or some Bush's baked beans in a can with a little bit. They put a little bacon in there. They put a little ham in there. That's good stuff. What else do I really like? Like a nice peanut butter and banana sandwich. You put peanut butter on one side, then you slice up a banana, put that on there, eat a peanut butter and banana sandwich, and the bananas help keep the peanut butter from getting stuck to your roof of your mouth, and they complement each other. I like banana Laffy Taffy, saltwater taffy. What else do we have in the world of tasty things? Did I exhaust all the grains? The cereals, your pastas, your bagels. Some good breads. There's good bread out there. You know, you've got different kinds of meats, different cuts of meats, delicious forms of meat, all kinds of, you know, vegetables. You've got your peppers, your broccoli, you know, peas, carrots, corn. There's all kinds of good vegetables. You put some butter on there. Brussels sprouts. I actually like Brussels sprouts, but they have to be cooked right. First, you boil the Brussels sprout, get it nice and soft. Then you put it on the pan with some butter and then let it soak up that butter. That's a good Brussels sprout. Got some kale, spinach, salads. What else do we have? Different types of fruits, star fruits. You've got, you know, candies of all sorts. I don't know. That's the kind of food that I like. But my shopping list today, I went and I bought some broccoli. I bought some broccoli. I'm cooking up some turkey. What other kind of foods do we got going on? It's broccoli, turkey. I got my onions. I got my garlic. I got my eggs. So that's the kind of stuff I eat. Not the most exciting diet. I got some kefir in there. Not the most interesting diet, but it makes me happy. It makes me feel good. My problem with morality is when universalism or altruism becomes the only standard of ethical actions. Do you like any music? Yeah, I like some music. I don't really listen to music just absent. I'm not one of these people who needs to listen to music all the time just to like, if I'm writing, I can write in silence. I can do things in silence. Dvorak, I think, is it Dvorak? Dvorak? I don't remember how do you spell Dvorak. Ken driving, vibing with Rachmaninoff's Scorpion Jacket. I don't have a Scorpion Jacket. Spectrum, Miles Above You. Yeah, that's what I listen to when I'm getting amped up. Yeah, that's true. Clothing serves most effectively to hide the abdominal physical deformity of modern men and women, just as superficial educationalism served to hide their dwarf minds. Interesting quote. Do you like any extreme music? I don't know. I guess like edgy music, like Rammstein's kind of edgy. I used to listen to them. Billy Talent, like some punk, like a little bit of punk in there. What other extreme music? I don't listen to like death metal. I don't really like to listen to people screaming. I don't like to listen to dubstep. So that's about it for extreme music. That's what I would define as extreme music. Maybe like a DMX type rap, like very aggressive, angry rap music. It might be defined as extreme. But I don't know. That's about it. Lo-fi hip hop beats to vibe to. Listening to Eurobeat. I was brainwashed as a child at a church camp. It was under the impression I had a spiritual experience. Church camp kids, you got to scroll back up. Church camp kids are abused. Well, I don't know if that's categorically true. Yes, if you think Christianity is abuse, I guess you're going to have that opinion. Until I had time to reflect on it, realized there was some mass manipulation of children at play. Have you ever smoked weed? Not really. I mean, I've been around weed smokers, so I guess there's a secondhand smoke that comes with that. But I've never been keen on weed. I've always viewed weed as a drug of lazy, weak people. I've always viewed it as a way. The promotion of weed always seemed to be about social control and taking aggressive people and making them peaceful and putting them in a dream state. So I've never really been into weed. I always thought cigarettes were cool, but I've never gotten into smoking cigarettes. I never thought cigars were cool. I always thought they were pretentious. I've never really thought alcohol was cool, and I don't like go to the store and buy alcohol. If I have a reason, if there's like a social occasion or something, and it's like, okay, everyone's getting drunk now. It's that time. It's that time again. I'm like, all right, give me a vodka or something like. But I don't think it's cool. I mean, I choose that because it's like if the purpose is to infuse your blood levels with alcohol, then I'm just going to choose vodka because I have a high tolerance for it. Like some people are like, oh, vodka tastes bad. Like I like it. Like I don't like. It's not that I don't like the taste of alcohol. Like alcohol has I guess you could say it has a good taste, but like if I'm drinking, it's on a very rare occasion and it's not for the purpose of like, ooh, I want to taste some delicious beverage. It's like, all right, well, everyone else is getting drunk, so I guess I have to get drunk too. Um, and I don't really get hangovers. So, I could be a very functional alcoholic if that was my vice, but I just never really got into alcohol. I never viewed drug use as something that was cool. And I saw a lot of other people doing it and I thought they were weak. But I do have vices. I'm not a perfect person. I guess people hear that I'm like fairly straight edge and they think I've got it all together, but I don't want to I mean, in the absence of me talking about myself, this is just an effect where if you don't mention all your flaws and all your problems. People just assume you're a perfect person. I don't talk about my flaws and problems because I don't feel that that's really productive. And my experience personally has been when people talk about flaws and problems, they tend to create an effect of making excuses. And people say, oh, well, my idol, he has flaws and problems, and therefore it's okay. I don't want to make excuses for my problems, and I don't really want to, um, what's the word? I don't want to normalize them. I think everyone has problems. Some people have addictions, and some people have bad habits, and some people are, mean spirited or whatever. Everyone's got problems, but this is not the self pity podcast. I had a spiritual experience after 2 weeks of no FAP. Okay. Fuentes isn't the most attractive dude. That's your opinion. I think he's above average. I think that's objectively true. I think he is neglecting his body. I think that's clear. I think he doesn't really take care of his physicality as much as he could. Yeah, I'm not gonna read that. I had to change my username. Good. Who could this new participant be? What if we had a salad while watching? Yeah, I thought about streaming myself eating a salad today. The book club has done that, which is good. Sometimes you get a hankering. I didn't say I get a hankering for something nasty. I didn't say that. That's not a quote. But that is funny. My shakes will include whole milk, blueberries, protein powder, creatine, 3 raw eggs, ice. Ken's diet is whack. 3 eggs in a shake. I don't know that my diet is whack. What's whack about my diet? Elderberries or elderberry powder in your diet for supposed antiviral, anti-corona effects. Cream cheese with salmon roe. Make sure you eat food that is good. Good Parmesan is tasty. Baker's chocolate with black coffee. Yeah, I don't drink coffee. I'm kind of like a cultural Mormon. But I don't know. Coffee with some milk and sugar is very tasty. When will Ken give raw carnivore an honest look? When salmonella, disappears. The acid of the coffee makes the yogurt very rich and creamy. That's interesting. Yogurt is tasty. Is soy really bad in protein powder? Soy has a lot of xenoestrogens and endocrine disruptors and phytic acid. I wouldn't recommend any legume. I wouldn't recommend beans. I wouldn't recommend soy. I wouldn't recommend nuts. I wouldn't even recommend peanuts at this point. Even though they have protein in them, I wouldn't recommend them. I think they include soy lectin as a way to make it dissolve better. Soy production is pretty toxic. Probably, yeah, most of it seems to come from bad stuff. It's bad, but if you're not getting enough protein, then I would say on that it's better than not. Just eat like foods that have protein. What is this grocery store stuff? You can get beef protein powder. Soy is in everything. David Lynch eats the same thing every day. Creating an extreme routine provides the conditions for creative freedom. That's a very interesting concept. I think there's something to that. I'm about to eat a burger. Got a sweet tooth. I don't buy candy. I guess I used to think as a kid, oh, I can just eat all the candy I want. And I kind of grew out of it. It seems like more than 3 meals. They're 3 very big meals, or it's just a very small portion of each. If coronavirus makes food trade impossible, what food would you live on? Nice stew into? Can start a cooking stream. Show us a dish. I mean, I could show you something. I could show you a turkey that I'm got in the oven. But I don't really have a mobile setup right now. Maybe when I have a mobile setup. Maybe if I get a cameraman we can do a cooking show together, we'll see. Ground turkey. When do you think we'll finally overcome Gamergate? I know we all started there, but we need to move on. Also, listen to Vaporwave Macintosh plus James Ferraro. I didn't start with Gamergate, but maybe that's a joke. Every once in a while, I'll listen to Saint Pepsi enjoying yourself and mourn the loss of Triddle Tom. Yeah, it's a good song. You should try weed but never smoke cigs. Well, I disagree. I don't think people should smoke weed. I think nicotine is better than marijuana. That's my belief. How tall are you? You just have to meet me in person and find out. I'd say he's 6. I could buy it. Now he's 5'2". Is that including the hair? Hetero male could not come up with a username that did not have a sexual undertone. You smoke meth on the DL? No. Ken likes Nick. Look, Nick is gonna get banned off YouTube. People just attack Nick on hypocritical grounds, and it annoys me. It seriously annoys me, and it shows me that they're charlatans. If you attack Nick on the basis of, oh, he's hanging out with cat boys, and it's like, you're no better. You hang out with Jack Donovan and who's the Charlie Kirk one? I don't even remember the other name. But you're just total hypocrites. You're opportunists. You're like just bad people. You're in bad faith, and at the end of the day, if Nick was the only one around, if it wasn't for these people critiquing him, then maybe I would be at war with Nick, but with the field as it is, I'm looking at the different actors, and it's like, on the one hand, you've got Nick, who I disagree with him on the nationalist thing, but at least has some level of competence and stability. At least he's not doing like, protests in the streets and like flyering and putting up stickers and posters on college campuses. Like, he's not doing the absolute worst, most stupid things you could be doing. So it's like, in comparison to the people who are attacking him, I kind of reactively, like, whenever there's conflict, there's some people who are ambiguous about it or don't care. There are other people where you sort of reactively have to take a side. And when people bring up these conflicts to me, and there's like, oh, it's this person versus that person, which do you support? I'm sort of reactively taking the side which seems less destructive, which seems less idiotic, which seems less hypocritical. Not to say Nick is an angel or something like that I love him and I'm on his team. It's just all the people who attack him from the nationalist camp seem to be attacking him in bad faith because they're jealous that he's winning and he's doing better than they are. Now, eventually, I don't think Nick's strategy is going to pan out in the long run, so I'm not on his team, but it's just sort of an emotional response when people attack him. I'm like, well, what are you doing? You're just jealous. Like, literally, you wish you were as intelligent and as stable as this person, but instead you just do stupid self-destructive acts for attention. You're basically just an attention seeker, and you don't have a deeper strategy, and so you'll go on CNN, you'll just do whatever gets you attention in the moment. You'll just say, and I say weird things just for the sake of saying weird things, but I'm also not claiming to be like a nationalist fighting for my people or something like that. So, there's fundamental disagreements here, but I do get a bit emotional about it, because I imagine that the same people who are attacking Nick over his associations someday are going to attack me. Uh, and so I see the character of these people, and I don't appreciate them goading young men into sacrificing their lives for something that's stupid. Whereas Nick seems to be saying, "Hey, don't try to red pill your family. Don't start marching in the streets. Don't put on an armband and go around saluting each other." So he seems to have a modicum of common sense, which is more than I can say for the people who are attacking him. So, like, on an emotional level, I just can't stand the performative, the tomfoolery, the clownishness that's landing people in jail of the people who are attacking Nick. And there's a certain term for them. I'm not going to use the term, but they know who they are, and I'm not impressed. And they're when you look at doxings come from these people. These people go around doxing anyone who they feel is too moderate or too conciliatory or too pragmatic. They go around doxing people. It's not Antifa doing the doxing. It's these right-wing extremist types who are doing the doxing. So These people are they eat the. It's very much like the French revolutionaries. They eat their own. If you're not pure enough, they'll attack you. I just want nothing to do with these people. Um, Whereas Nick at least seems to have the good sense to at least acknowledge that like coalition building might be useful. As again, as if he was the only, if he's the last man standing, if it's just him on the right, then I would start to critique and push. I mean, I'm attacking nationalism, so how can it be said that I'm on the same page as Nick? But people do that. They say like, "Oh, let me think of the two most popular people on YouTube, and I'll just endlessly compare, whoever I see. Oh, you're more like Nick, or you're against Nick." Like everyone has to make this bifurcation, and it's an oversimplification. People even say like, "Oh, you have the same mannerisms, you look the same, you talk the same." It's like I don't know where you people get off. I've been on YouTube before his show was even big or popular. I mean, I think I've been on YouTube. Well, I mean, he was around 2017, so I guess I wasn't doing much before 2017, but I've been doing this for a long time. So the idea that I'm like copying him or something is very strange. Just listening to Metallica for the first time, pretty cool. Ken seems to have thought a lot about Nick's physique. Well, he seems to have neck problems. He seems to have forward head posture, which I have as well, but I try to work on it. And he seems to have very severe forward head posture, and it seems to cause him physical pain. And he also has remarked about himself that he used to be more angular, and that's just his body fat percentage. So if he exercised, if he did a bit of cardio, if he did a bit of weight training, if he watched what he was eating, if he worked on his posture, forward head posture, I think he would feel better. And I think he'd also probably look better. So that's just a fact. You don't have to be some giant hulking bodybuilder to get the benefits of exercise. 3 eggs. Ken got. I don't know where that is coming from. Coffee with coconut milk. I don't drink coffee. Coffee with milk is tasty. I don't drink it habitually. I don't remember the last time I had coffee. It's literally been years and years and years since I've had a cup of coffee. But I like the taste of coffee. I just don't drink it as a habit because I think it messes up. I have perpetual insomnia, so it kind of aggravates my insomnia. Salmonella is propaganda. Pythagoras was ahead of his time. Ken's cozy home tour. That was the best comment of the evening. What was? Your body can only metabolize so much protein. Excess is converted into glucose insulin spike. I didn't know that. Well, I think your body can, I mean, you can take in, it's like a gram per pound. So if you're like 200 pounds, you can have 200 grams. I don't think, I don't think most people have a problem with too much protein, but obviously some people who are freaks about it, just shoveling the protein powder are going to have a problem. Eat it in intervals of 30 grams. Yeah, that's like a serving of meat. Like if you have a slab of meat, it's 30 grams. Okay, I'm not going to read that, Ender Wiggin. I'm not gonna have these sexual comments about Trudel Tom. That is not respectful. You need to respect Trudel Tom. Donovan Johnson, Lady Maga. Yeah. Never liked JF. Well, we'll see what happens with him. I found Trudel Tom, JF. I'm not gonna talk about him that much. It's just not worth even naming the guy. I mean, like he said he would side with Antifa. He said he would support Antifa and doxing Nick's supporters and attacking Nick. It's just I don't even want to name the guy because when you start naming these people, then I'll be on his blacklist, and then he'll align with Antifa to attack me. It's like what kind of like I can have debates with people, I can disagree with people, and we don't have to want to kill each other. We don't want to try to destroy each other's lives. Like we can debate about ideology, we can debate about religion, we can debate about these things. And I guess this is, in some way it's a liberal perspective that I have, whereas these people are like out for blood because they have no power. And so through their sort of castrated enervated, powerless stance. They attack people who are like also powerless as a way of feeling powerful. Like, because they can't. This is why people commit terrorism. It's like mass immigration is coming into your country. The people who are doing it are billionaires, elites, owners of media. You can't actually challenge those people. So instead, you go into a mosque and you just start shooting random innocent people. That is the mentality of these people. They'll attack you even if you are not the source of their problems. I'm not censoring these people. I'm not trying to deplatform them or whatever. I'm not trying to get them fired from their job. But the moment you start even naming these people and talking about these people, they turn on you, because for them it's a power thing. It's not about being effective. It's not about succeeding or winning or achieving some kind of goal. It's purely like, well, I feel powerless, so I'm going to LARP about Imperium. I'm going to LARP about the collapse of America. I'm going to LARP about, attacking the shills and anyone they label cucks and shills. I mean, you've seen this. And it's not just, people now who are on Team Nick used to do this to Milo. And again, I'm not like a fan of Milo, but a lot of the people who now claim, oh, we're on Team Nick and we hate those other people. It's a W word. We hate those other people because they're purity spiralers. Those same people in the past used to be doing the same purity spiraling. So there's a lot of destructive behavior going on that's not productive, and it's just pure emotionalism. It's just literally, it's like when you're on the playground and you're making a sandcastle and someone makes a better sandcastle, so you go and kick their sandcastle over. This is the equivalent of YouTube drama. So it's not very important, but people get vicious about it. People want to kill each other over it. It's very sad. It's what happens when you mix a complete lack of awareness about reality. You mix that with fantasies that are violent, and it becomes very vindictive and very, like, basically you're scapegoating people for all your problems. Oh, Nick is the reason why we won't succeed. Nick is the problem. He's stealing the real nationalists. We're the real nationalists. It's just, it's perverse. Try white tea with sugar, slice of lemon. I don't drink tea. Not because it's bad. Again, tea is good. It's not part of my habits. I don't drink hot drinks. Again, I'm like a cultural Mormon. Before I ever heard about Mormonism, I was, for some reason, it's just, maybe Joseph Smith was just right. Maybe Joseph Smith is subliminally telling me to do these things. The reality is we're never going to get anywhere if we don't get to the core of our problems, political bias in the video game journalist community. I'm part of the conspiracy. I'm part of the video game journalist community. He's been accused of working with Antifa to censor Fuentes. Maybe he was joking when he said that, but I've heard him say, yeah, I'll work with Antifa to attack Fuentes. Yeah, that's my, he's on my blacklist. It's like, he said mean words about you on the internet. That's the internet, dude. People say mean words to each other, but you're going to take that and then you're going to say, yeah, I think we should join with Antifa to destroy your life and deplatform you. That to me is really bad. It's really bad. It's not something I ever want to associate with, because you try to be friends with these people and it's just a matter of time before you're not pure enough and your friendship will disappear into thin air, and now you're a traitor. And I don't want to be involved with that kind of people. It's very dogmatic. It's very cultic. Now, maybe at some point we do need to be religious. Maybe we do need to be dogmatic. Maybe we do need to be cultic. But we need to be dogmatic about the truth. And nationalism is not my theology. I don't think it's worth, killing people over. But maybe there are certain things that are worth dying for. But I don't think the nation state is one of those things. Yeah, I'm not going to say that word. Word on the street is Neil was doxxed by Nick's people. Did Nick order that? I mean, when you say Nick's people, he was doxxed by Nick's people. Did Nick order that? Did he ask for that to happen? Maybe there are people who like Nick can't control who likes him. It's one thing for someone who says I like Nick to then go dox Josh, which I don't agree with. It's another thing for JF to say, yeah, I'm going to side with Antifa and destroy this guy's life. Do you see the difference there? Do you see the difference between someone who claims to be a member of a community, which there's no like membership role, there's no official organization. Yeah, I'm an official card carrying member of Nick's community. No, it's just anonymous Twitter users. So there's no way that you can claim ownership of those people's actions, or you can disavow them, but then you're going to be endlessly disavowing millions of people. So the idea that there's an equivalence between Nick's people doxing Josh and then other people saying, I'm going to destroy supposed community leaders or whatever, people with an audience saying, I'm going to destroy Nick. I think there's a huge gap between that. I mean, I don't really think anybody should be looking at this as, I'm not at the point where I'm just talking about ideas. Okay, so to me, there's no benefit to me for doxing people and destroying people's lives, and people who engage with that just says to me that like your ideas are probably not that good. I mean, if we wanted to have a panel about post-humanism or some of these things, I mean, maybe I'm just not a very dogmatic guy, so it's not my style to be vindictive. And when I disagree with someone, it's not my style to say, like, now you're on my blacklist, now I have to destroy you. If someone says mean things about me on the internet, I'm just not a very vengeful personality, so I don't like to mix with people who are extremely vengeful and vindictive. And I see a lot of that behavior, and it just doesn't seem productive. The whole like trolling conservatives in the first place, or the Gamergate thing, trolling journalists. I don't think of that as very productive. I think these people need to start doing things productive, building themselves up, and stop negatively and sadistically attacking anyone who they think is slightly more moderate than them, or they're co-opting the movement or whatever. That's my take. People are spreading rumors about Josh's doxing. Yeah, and I don't support anyone ruining anyone's life over things said on the internet. I don't support that. But I think there's a qualitative difference between random people on the internet doing that and then claiming to be part of a camp, which is not an official thing, it's just an ambiguous thing on the internet. There's a difference between that and then someone saying, I, as like a community leader, as someone who has an audience, I'm going to support the actions of Antifa and doxing. Like, I think there's a difference. Regardless of opinions, I think it's fair to say Nick would be safest aligning with the type of people who organized and still defend. John Mann, you have the worst takes I've ever seen. There's absolutely nothing safe about organizing with those people. I don't know anyone who in their right mind would say aligning with those people is a good idea. You're gonna have to put some evidence for that, because I think that's ridiculous. Your hand movements are similar to Nick's. If I make a hand movement that's similar, we're gonna need some kind of hand movement analysis here. Nick is more of an imperialist than a nationalist. Well, he describes himself as a nationalist, but I think, yeah, he is a pragmatist. I think he does have some nuance. So, I mean, if I ever got to the point where he was even interested in talking to me, then I think he just has a brand. Like, he has a brand. He's not an ideologue. He's not here to like defend his ideology against my critiques. He's here to push his ideology because it represents a brand. In the same way that if I went to McDonald's and said, look, McDonald's actually etymologically is related to a Scottish clan and blah, 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 and that's why you should change your name to McDonald's. Do you think McDonald's would change their name just because I make some kind of genealogical, etymological argument about how, like, their name is flawed in some way? No. They're going to continue with their brand because it makes them money. Same thing with Nick. He's going to continue with his brand because it makes him money. But when I just see the behavior, I don't see Nick and Nick's people. I mean, if it gets to that point, if Nick and Nick's people start attacking, purity spiraling and saying, "Oh, you're too moderate," and doxing people. I mean, if that's what it's all about, then I would have to disavow both sides, which is why I'm not a nationalist. I'm not part of that community. I don't like those people. I think something new is to be done. He's all over the place with his ideology. Holding your head up doesn't correct underlying problem. Neat lat bar face pulls. Yeah, face pulls are probably good. But as far as I know, face pulls they bring the shoulders down and back. If you have bad forward head posture, I think there's something, I don't know, it's all connected. Nick needs a little gel, stick his hair like a Ginny? I have no clue what you're talking about. His hair is fine. It's fine. Trudel Tom aligned with Antifa? That's not what I said. Okay, people are getting confused. I'm talking about JF. I'm not talking about Trudel Tom. Everyone thinks they're a pragmatist. Maybe he's talking about Josh Neal. I'm not sure who he's talking about. I'm talking about JF, okay? I'm not talking about anybody else. If Antifa beats up Ken, we're going off. Donovan. Seriously, surprised Trudel Tom was a member of Antifa. How do people get that? We weren't even talking about Trudel Tom. People are very weird. Nick is trying to do a majoritarian strategy. Do you think it will work? No, I don't think it will work, and I critique that. But when you look at these people, what do? They go on the mainstream media, they blow up their spot, they get people doxxed, they hold street rallies, they have street fights, they put up posters on college campuses. This is their behavior. And I don't want anything to do with that. And Nick seems to be moving away from that. And so to that extent, I say he is marginally better. So I'm not going to attack him because he's the lesser of two evils. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think a majoritarian strategy will work. So I'm not on his team. I'm not in his movement. I'm not part of his thing. But people want to bring up the e-drama. And I stupidly feed into it. I saw the bike lock to the head guy got probation while the Proud Boy Street Brawlers got years in prison. Yeah, that's the situation. So that's not even playing field. I don't know why anyone would, in their right mind, would think that, oh, the system is fair. If we just go out and use our right to self-defense, we'll red pill the normies or something. It's very bad ideas. Gram per pound is bogus posting in Discord. Do you have to post to be in the Discord? How much do you think you should have, Menthol? Is it 0.6 to 1 per pound? I mean, look, for a 200-pound guy, you're probably not going to hit 100 grams in a day if you're just eating food, if you're just like eating meats and vegetables and everything. Let's be honest, this whole corner of YouTube we watch isn't relevant at all. I agree. This corner of YouTube is irrelevant, and I don't think anyone should get mad about it. Getting mad on the internet about, oh, we disagree. You said a mean word about me. You personally attacked me. It's like, it's the internet. Getting all puffed up and serious about it. That's why I don't like the doxing, because I'm like, there is literally nothing that anyone could really say to me in terms of ideology. Now, if someone made like a death threat toward me that I felt was serious, if someone doxed me or it was like, here's this guy's address, maybe I would feel retaliation was in order. But as far as ideology, someone comes on, they say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Satanist, I'm a Marxist, I'm a nationalist, I'm this, I'm that. Like, there's nothing really that anyone could say that would make me want to dox them. Even personal insults. Oh, you're effeminate, you're short, you're weak, you're stupid. Like, your family is stupid, your family is weak, you're a degenerate, you're this. I mean, there's really no kind of personal attack that anyone could make on me that would make me say, okay, it's time to dox this person. Because from my perspective, maybe this is a Christian perspective, But I'm not going to waste my whole life attacking people who attack me. I'm going to try to spend my life building myself up and building up the people who I love and trying to do something constructive and positive. So people can say whatever they want about me. We can have disagreements. There's no reason, as far as I'm concerned, for doxing. Now, if I was like the head of a political party in a real political movement and something significant was happening, maybe then, yeah, you resort to shady tricks because then it matters. But when I look at all this stuff, it's like, why would you, if I was the head of the Teamsters union, if I was Jimmy Hoffa, then maybe we would be playing dirty tricks. But as it stands, it's like there's no reason to get mad. There's no reason to view this as anything other than like hobbyism and theoretics and metacultural discourse or whatever, philosophizing. I don't think there's any reason to ever dox people or physically attack people or say I'm going to ally with Antifa to attack people. I just think that's so ridiculous. I don't know what you're talking about here. I only watch Ken and Justin Murphy. Yeah, that is the patrician. That is the patrician choice. That's why I like people like Justin, not because I agree with him on everything, but because we really do need to get outside of this paradigm, and that's all of us. We, as a community, we need to shift in a different direction and just stop. And because the negativity is always going to be there. These people are always there. Have always been skinheads. There have always been neo Nazis and whatever. They're always going to be there. They're never going to go away. So at some point we have to stop talking about them and stop talking about the drama between different factions of skinheads and neo-Nazis, and we just need to move on to something constructive. We should post in Justin's chat. I've gotten Ken on his radar, but we need to create consensus in the chat. Nick did order the doxing. I saw the order. I made the call. Nick told me he did it. Okay. All right. Well, then I disavow. Ken is Dave Rubin. Is that glitter, lint, or lice? It could be all three. On your shirt. Well, actually, it's a pattern. It's a black shirt with a white speckled pattern. Have you blocked someone on Twitter? I've blocked people on Twitter. Let's see who I've blocked. Whenever I see gore, whenever I see porn, whenever I see something stupid that I don't feel I would benefit from, I block people because I don't want to see what they're doing. How do I show settings? Is it going to be in settings of people I block? Privacy and safety. Blocked accounts. Let's see who I blocked. I have a bunch of every time I see an advertisement on Twitter, I block the advertisement. I've got porn stars blocked. I've got, I don't know, people with stupid takes blocked. I don't think I've ever blocked anyone who's interacted with me. I've just blocked people where I'm like, I'm just tired of seeing you on my timeline. So that's why I've blocked people, because I'm bored of seeing their takes, or because they're posting something offensive. But to me, I use Twitter to like see what's out there, and I block people because I just don't want to see what they're saying, because it's noise that's not productive for me. But I don't block people because it's like, we were in a conversation and I got angry at you, so I blocked you. That hasn't happened yet. The shirt is made that way. He unfollowed me. He followed me, then unfollowed. Yeah. Basically, when people follow me, I typically follow back just to see what they're up about. And then I usually unfollow people when I get bored of them. So, I don't know. Don't take it personally. Trolling Kirk was kind of productive. It only helps the left. I don't know if that's entirely true, but I'm an unironic neocon now. I'm Bloomberg 2020. Yeah, we might have to go Bloomberg 2020. Ken reminds me of that dude from Luke Ford. Which guy from Luke Ford? I guess he did use that funny clip of Identify Yevroba. There were a lot of funny things that happened there, but I don't know. I didn't participate personally. Make America bloom again. Yeah, I'm a bloomer. What is Ken's brand? Ken's brand is he has no brand. He is a true liberal orbiting around the empty social nexus. It's Abercrombie and Fitch. I thought we were postmodern formalists. Evidence for why one should support the people. What is the evidence? I don't know why anyone would ever associate with anyone who was involved with Charlottesville. Like anyone who organized it or was a lead speaker at Charlottesville, I don't see the purpose behind ever associating with those people. We're creating a third position for online political community. Ken is an esoteric minoritarian hypermodernist. Ken is anti-Rise Up. I thought we were post-Mulbugian crypto-Christians. All the above. Did you grow up in the sticks or a city slicker? I don't like your use of the exclamation and question mark. It's very loud and aggressive, so I'm not going to answer that. Hratska. Do you like Borna Choric? Lijepa Nasha. Domovina. I look Croatian. LOL exclamation. What's going on with Borna? Shout out to Mario Hazonia. He has been slipping, but he's cool. Shout out to famous Croats. Hey Ken, check out my channel. The most... Oh! Quantrell Bishop featuring me in his channel? Well, let's see if we can check out Quantrell Bishop. But that, see, I can't do it from the interface. I have to go into the stream itself. Wow. 4 thumbs down. I didn't realize people hated this so much. Where are we going? Go to my channel. I'm an ally of pacifism. So Quantrell has disappeared for some reason. Quantrell? Yeah, Quantrell has disappeared. I don't know why Quantrell has disappeared. Is it Quantrell Bishop? What's his name? He has 50k subscribers. But this is not the same Quantrell Bishop. This is a different Quantrell Bishop. Quantrell Bishop has 50k subscribers. I'm very frustrated with YouTube. Where is the Quantrell Bishop? Quantrell Bishop has disappeared. I don't know. Oh, I'm here. Okay, go to channel. Let's see if this pulls it up. Nope. That didn't pull it up. Do I still have this open? Why is your name the same as a YouTube channel with 50,000 subscribers? That's my question. Okay, go to channel. Quantrell Bishop. Let's see what's going on. Okay, Quantrell has posted a video which I've seen before on YouTube. Which I don't know if I am happy about the portrayal of my visage in this video, and the thought bubble and the implications of the thought bubble. I don't know about that, but that's what it is. It is what it is. I can't copy strike you, so that will be what it is. Okay. Let's restore the chat and take a look back. He's been slipping. Copy strike him. Watch the video. Can you explain it to us? I'm an ally of pacifism. Did you see the Dire Molyneux debate? No. He made a point about coalition building. I'm cognizant of various self-destructive cannibalistic forces within the right wing. I'm not associated with these. Good. As far as accomplices go, the less ideological, the better. I'm a realist beyond other things. That's the source of my nationalism. You may disagree, but there would still be a place for you within my order. Well, I'm glad I would not be in a camp Do you think Obama watches your stream? Seems like the same energy. Yeah, I think the person I probably identify with most is Obama. I've heard he does watch my streams, but I can't confirm that. Neocon Praxis would be getting exiled from the US, fleeing to China, having your kid write a Nietzschean op-ed on why we need to bomb strategic sites. I don't know about that. Obama was pretty chill. The whole brother, my European family. Bloomberg paid for 2 Super Bowl commercials. The chat will never end. Great pronunciation. For real, his pronunciation is on point. It's easy because I try to read Russian and I have to convert Cyrillic in my mind, which is like impossible. So basically, to me, Croatian is just Russian on easy mode. Anyone know Olaf's new channel? If challenged to a duel, would you choose sword or pistols? I don't know. Pistols would be kind of unfair. I feel like that would just be luck. So maybe I would choose pistols just for luck. But swords would be swords would be vicious. Having a duel with swords, it would depend. If my opponent was weak, I would choose swords so that I would win the duel. But if my opponent was strong, I would choose pistols to have a better chance of winning the duel. I made a video about you on my other channel. Well, you're gonna have to link to that. I'll make you a mod so you can post a link. Obviously, swords. The channel name is you tricked me. You pranked me. Okay. Follow me at Joe Rogan Experience. I'm watching this from Obama phone. That's it. That's the end of the chat. We've reached the end, and that's the end of the stream. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Apologies for everything. And it was a controversial stream. We had 4 thumbs down, so people are not happy, but that's okay. We are pushing the envelope. And I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna go take a bathroom break. I'm gonna pull the turkey out of the oven. I'm gonna enjoy myself. But all of you out there, enjoy yourselves. Until next time, just be yourself, okay? Just unless you're a bad person, then change. Keep working on yourself. Something. I don't know. Have a good